Hello guys, welcome to Fiction Quest. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto awakened power of the Holy Knight and got married with Elizabeth Leones from the 7 Deadly Sins? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Divine Convergence Chapter 1. Worlds apart, Naruto's body plummeted through empty space, a blur of orange and black against an endless void. Pain lanced through every fiber of his being, not the physical agony of battle wounds, but something deeper, as if his very chakra was being rewritten. His mind flickered between consciousness and oblivion. This isn't Genjutsu. This is something else. The last thing he remembered was confronting that strange shinobi with the rippling eyes, not Rinnegan, something different, who'd torn open reality itself during their battle. The man had laughed as Naruto's Rasengan struck him, even as a vortex of chakra erupted around them both. "See you on the other side, Nine Tails," the man had whispered before dissolving into particles of light. Now Naruto was falling through nothingness, the fox's chakra swirling chaotically within him. Kurama's voice was distant, distorted. "Kit, something's wrong. Our chakra, changing." A blinding light erupted beneath him. Naruto squinted against the glare as it rushed up to meet him. The emptiness gave way to blue sky and rolling green hills. The wind whistled past his ears as gravity took hold once more. "This is gonna hurt," he muttered, crossing his arms in front of his face. He crashed through the canopy of a massive tree, branches snapping under his weight before he slammed into the ground. The impact knocked what little breath remained from his lungs. Black spots danced across his vision as he lay in a small crater of his own making. For several minutes, Naruto simply breathed, focusing on the simple act of drawing air into his lungs. The sky above was impossibly blue, brighter somehow than the one he knew. Birds called to one another in patterns he didn't recognize. "Where am I?" He pushed himself up on trembling arms, wincing at the protest of bruised muscles. His jacket was torn, and blood trickled from a dozen small cuts, but nothing seemed broken. That alone was strange. A fall from that height should have killed him, or at least shattered bones. "Kurama," he called inwardly, seeking the familiar presence of the Nine Tails. "Here," but changed. Naruto frowned, pressing a hand to his stomach where the seal should be. He could still feel Kurama's chakra, but it was different. Warmer somehow, lighter, as if someone had taken the fox's raw, burning energy and filtered it through crystal. He channeled a small amount of chakra to his palm, expecting the familiar blue glow. Instead, his hand illuminated with golden light, tiny symbols spiraling around his fingers like living calligraphy. What the hell? Naruto stared at his palm, releasing the flow of chakra. The golden light faded. He stood slowly, taking stock of his surroundings. The forest around him was unlike any he'd seen before. Ancient trees with trunks wider than houses, flowers that seemed to glow with inner light, and strange fruits hanging from branches. A sudden crashing sound from the underbrush snapped him to attention. Naruto dropped into a fighting stance, reaching for a kunai only to find his pouch missing. "Great," he muttered. The bushes parted to reveal a monstrous boar, easily twice the size of any he'd seen in the forests around Konoha. Its tusks were massive, curved ivory weapons, and its eyes burned with wild fury as it spotted him. "Nice piggy," Naruto said, backing away slowly. "I'm not looking for trouble." The boar disagreed. It pawed the ground once, twice, then charged with surprising speed for its bulk. Naruto leapt aside, his ninja reflexes allowing him to easily clear the beast's rush. He flipped mid-air, landing in a crouch on a low branch. "Shadow Clone Jutsu," he called, forming the familiar hand sign. Nothing happened. The boar wheeled around, setting its sights on him again. "Shadow Clone Jutsu." Naruto tried again, more desperately this time. Still nothing. "Your chakra is different now," Kurama's voice came, stronger than before. "Our connection to your world's energy is severed." "Then what am I supposed to do?" Naruto demanded as the boar charged again. Acting on instinct, he thrust his hand forward. Golden light erupted from his palm. Not in the spiral pattern of a Rasengan, but in a blinding flash that formed a translucent barrier. The boar slammed into it head first and staggered back, dazed. Naruto stared at his hand in wonder. What was that? A new power. Kurama replied. This world is changing us. The boar shook its massive head and prepared for another charge. This time, Naruto didn't wait. He focused on the strange new energy flowing through him. Not chakra exactly, but something adjacent to it, and channeled it into his fist. Let's see what this can do. As the boar rushed him, Naruto met its charge head-on. His golden wreathed fist connected with the beast's forehead. There was a flash of light, and the boar was thrown backward as if struck by Sakura at full strength. It crashed through several trees before coming to rest. Unconscious but breathing, Naruto looked at his unmarked fist in amazement. Okay, that was cool. A scream pierced the air, distant but clear. Human, female, and in trouble. Without hesitation, Naruto sprinted toward the sound, leaping from tree to tree with the grace born of years of training. His body still responded to his will as it always had, even if his chakra had transformed. He burst from the tree line into a wide clearing just in time to see a young woman with silver hair backing away from 3 armored men. She wore a simple waitress uniform, pink and blah, CK, but carried herself with dignity despite her obvious fear. Please, she said, her voice soft but firm. I've done nothing wrong. Orders are orders, Lady Elizabeth, said the lead knight, a tall man in elaborate silver armor adorned with blue crystals. Lord Varric says you're to come with us. The 7 deadly sins have been declared enemies of the kingdom once more. That's a lie, Elizabeth replied, her hands balling into fists. King Bartra would never. The king is ill, another knight cut in. Lord Varric speaks with his authority now. Elizabeth's eyes narrowed. And I suppose why father's illness was quite convenient for Lord Varric. The lead knight's hand fell to his sword. Watch your words, princess. Treason is a serious charge. So is threatening royalty, Naruto called, stepping into the clearing. All eyes turned to him. The knight's expressions shifted from surprise to contempt as they took in his torn clothes and foreign appearance. This doesn't concern you, boy, the lead knight said dismissively. Move along if you value your life. Naruto grinned, cracking his knuckles. 3 armed men threatening 1 woman. Yeah, that definitely concerns me. The knight drew his sword, the blade glowing with a faint blue light. Your funeral. Elizabeth stepped forward. Please, don't involve yourself. These are holy knights. They're dangerous. So am I, Naruto replied, his eyes never leaving the knights. The lead knight charged, his sword leaving a trail of blue light as he swung it in a deadly arc. Naruto sidestepped the blow with ease, the blade missing him by inches. The knight's momentum carried him forward, and Naruto delivered a quick kick to his backside, sending him sprawling. Is that all a holy knight can do? Naruto taunted. I've fought academy students with better form. The knight rose, fury evident in his reddening face. Divine slash, he shouted, swinging his sword. This time, a crescent of blue energy shot from the blade, racing toward Naruto. Acting on instinct, Naruto raised his hand. Golden light flared, forming a barrier that absorbed the attack without a crack. The knight stared in shock. He blocked Sardarin's divine slash with bare hands. Is he a holy knight too? Naruto didn't wait for them to recover from their surprise. He dashed forward, golden energy wreathing his fists as he delivered a series of rapid punches to the first knight's armor. The metal crumpled under the impact, and the man collapsed with a groan. The second knight swung a massive axe at Naruto's head. He ducked beneath it and swept the man's legs from under him. As the knight fell, Naruto delivered a golden charged palm strike to his chest, sending him flying into a tree trunk. The lead knight, Sardarin, backed away, his sword raised defensively. Who are you? He demanded. No ordinary man could defeat holy knights so easily. Naruto straightened, golden energy still dancing around his fingertips. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and where I come from. We don't let bullies push people around, especially not pretty girls. A faint blush colored Elizabeth's cheeks at his words. Sardarin scowled. Lord Varric will hear of this. The princess is coming with me, one way or another. No, she's not, Naruto replied evenly. So you can either leave now on your feet, or I can help you leave another way. The knight's eyes darted between Naruto and his fallen comrades. With a curse, he sheathed his sword. This isn't over. He turned and fled into the forest, leaving his companions behind. Naruto watched him go, then turned to Elizabeth with a friendly smile. Are you okay? Elizabeth stared at him with wide eyes that Naruto now noticed were different colors, one blue, one orange with a strange symbol. You fought holy knights without a weapon. Who are you really? I told you, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. He scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Though I'm not exactly sure where I am or how I got here. You're in the kingdom of Leones, Elizabeth said, studying him curiously. Did you come from another kingdom? Your clothes are unlike any I've seen. Naruto looked down at his tattered orange and black outfit. I'm from a place called Konoha. The village hidden in the leaves. But I don't think it's in this world. Another world. Elizabeth's eyes widened further. Like the demon realm. I don't know about any demon realm, Naruto said. But where I'm from, we have ninja and chakra and a lot of things I'm not seeing here. A groan from one of the fallen knights interrupted their conversation. The man was beginning to stir. We should go, Elizabeth said urgently. More knights will come looking for these ones. Naruto nodded. Lead the way. They made their way deeper into the forest, Elizabeth setting a brisk pace despite her impractical footwear. Naruto walked beside her, keeping his senses alert for any sign of pursuit. So you're a princess? He asked after a while. Elizabeth nodded. The third princess of Leones. Adopted, actually. But my father, King Bartra, has always treated me as his own. And those guys want to capture you because it's complicated, Elizabeth sighed. The Seven Deadly Sins, they're a group of powerful knights who serve the kingdom, were framed for treason 10 years ago. Recently, we proved their innocence, and they helped save the kingdom from the 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Powerful demons, Elizabeth explained. It's a long story. The important thing is, the Sins are heroes now. Or they were until Lord Varrock started turning the other holy knights against them again. And this Varrock guy wants you because I'm close to the Sins, especially their captain, Meliodas. A faint blush colored her cheeks again. Eric probably thinks he can use me as leverage against them. And as a princess, controlling me helps legitimize his power grab. Naruto nodded thoughtfully. Politics. Some things are the same in every world. Elizabeth glanced at him curiously. You fought like a holy knight, but different somehow. That golden light, it resembled goddess powers more than anything. Goddess powers. Naruto frowned. I don't know what that is. Where I'm from, we use chakra, a kind of energy that combines physical and spiritual power. But when I came to this world, something changed. My chakra feels different now. Perhaps your power adapted to our world's magic system, Elizabeth suggested. It's fascinating, really. I've never seen anyone fight quite like you. Naruto grinned. I'm one of a kind. Elizabeth's lips curved into a small smile. Indeed. Her expression sobered quickly. I was trying to reach the Boar Hat. That's the tavern Meliodas runs. It's also our base, in a way. I was separated owned the others during an attack on a village we were helping. The Boar Hat, Naruto repeated. Interesting name for a tavern. It has a giant boar head on top, Elizabeth said with a faint smile. Sir Hawk would be offended that you find it strange. Sir Hawk. Another long story, Elizabeth said. We should reach the tavern by nightfall if we keep this pace. As they walked, Naruto filled the time by telling Elizabeth about Konoha and his friends there. She listened with rapt attention, asking intelligent questions about chakra and the ninja way of life. So these Hokages are like kings, she asked. Kind of, but chosen for strength and wisdom, not bloodline, Naruto explained. I'm training to become Hokage someday. I think you'd make a fine leader, Elizabeth said sincerely. Before Naruto could respond, a crack of thunder split the air. Except it wasn't thunder, it was the sound of trees being shattered. Something massive was moving through the forest toward them. That doesn't sound good, Naruto muttered, stepping protectively in front of Elizabeth. No, she agreed, her expression grim. It doesn't. The trees before them parted, revealing a giant figure in gleaming black armor. The man must have stood 9 feet tall, with shoulders as broad as Naruto was tall. In one massive hand, he carried a warhammer that glowed with sickly green energy. Princess Elizabeth, the giant rumbled, his voice like stones grinding together. Lord Varrock sends his regards. Elizabeth's face paled. Sir Golgius, you've changed since I last saw you. The experiments have made me stronger, the giant replied, flexing his free hand. Strong enough to bring you back, willing or not. Naruto sized up their new opponent. This was no ordinary knight like the others. Power radiated from him in waves, dark and corrupted. I'm guessing this guy's trouble, Naruto asked quietly. Very much so, Elizabeth whispered back. He was once a member of the Weird Fangs, a group of holy knights who served under the demon Fraudron. I thought he'd been imprisoned after the truth came out. Clearly, he got an upgrade and a job offer, Naruto said, cracking his knuckles. Get back, princess. This could get messy. Elizabeth shook her head stubbornly. I can fight too, princess, Golgius called, taking a step forward that shook the ground. Come quietly, and I won't harm your strange new friend. Not happening, Naruto called back. She's under my protection now. Golgius laughed, the sound like metal scraping on stone. You, protect her from me. You're nothing but a boy playing at being a knight. Maybe, Naruto conceded with a shrug. But I've taken down bigger guys than you before. Without warning, Golgius vanished from sight. Naruto blinked in surprise. Where did he? Behind you, Elizabeth cried. Naruto spun just in time to see the massive warhammer descending toward his head. He threw himself sideways, the weapon missing him by inches and cratering the ground where he'd stood. He can teleport, Elizabeth explained quickly. It's his power. Great, Naruto muttered, regaining his footing. Any other surprises I should know about? Many. Golgius's voice came from behind them again. This time, Naruto was ready. As he turned, he channeled the golden energy into his hands, forming a glowing orb between his palms. It wasn't quite a Rasengan. The energy moved differently, spiraling outward rather than inward, but the principle felt similar. As Golgius swung his hammer horizontally, Naruto thrust the golden orb forward. The two forces met in a spectacular collision of energy, sending both combatants skidding backward. Golgius looked at his smoking hammer in shock. Impossible, he growled. No mere human could withstand my death hammer. I'm not your average human, Naruto replied with a fox-like grin. And I'm just getting warmed up. He dashed forward, moving faster than Golgius could track despite his massive size. Golden energy flowed around Naruto's body, enhancing his already considerable speed. He delivered a series of punches to the giant's armored legs, each impact resonating with a metallic clang. Golgius roared in pain and teleported away, reappearing several yards distant. You're quick, boy, but speed won't save you from this. He raised his hammer high, and the green energy surrounding it intensified. Pestilence wave, a roll. In cloud of sickly green mist erupted from the hammer, spreading rapidly toward Naruto and Elizabeth. Don't breathe it in, Elizabeth warned. It's poisonous. Naruto acted on instinct once more. He swept his arms in a wide arc, golden energy trailing from his fingertips. To his surprise, the energy formed a swirling vortex, not unlike his wind-style jutsu, that caught the green mist and dispersed it harmlessly into the air. Elizabeth stared at him in amazement. That was pretty cool, right? Naruto grinned. Golgius teleported again, appearing directly in front of Elizabeth with his hammer raised. Enough games. Before the hammer could fall, Naruto was there, golden energy gathered in his palm in a tight, spinning ball that now much more closely resembled his signature technique. Rasengan, he shouted, driving the golden sphere into Golgius's chest plate. The armor shattered on impact, and the giant was sent flying backward through multiple trees, his hammer spinning from his grasp. He crashed to the ground nearly 100 yards away, his armor in pieces around him. Naruto stood protectively in front of Elizabeth, golden energy still dancing around his form. Stay behind me, he said, his voice uncharacteristically serious. To his surprise, Elizabeth stepped up beside him instead. She raised her hand, and a soft white light emanated from her palm. I told you, I can fight too. Together, they watched as Golgius struggled to his feet, his massive form now considerably less imposing without his armor. Blood trickled from his mouth, and his eyes were wide with disbelief. What are you? He demanded, staring at Naruto. Just a ninja who doesn't like bullies, Naruto replied evenly. Now take a message back to your boss. The princess is off limits. Next time, I won't hold back. Golgius spat blood onto the forest floor. This isn't over. With a flash of green light, he teleported away, leaving his shattered armor and hammer behind. Naruto let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The golden energy fading from his body. Well, that was interesting. Elizabeth looked at him with new respect in her mismatched eyes. That was incredible. I've never seen anyone besides the 7 deadly sins stand up to a holy knight of Golgius's caliber, let alone defeat one so thoroughly. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly self-conscious. I got lucky. If he'd been smarter about using that teleportation power, it could have gone differently. Don't undersell yourself, Elizabeth said firmly. That golden energy, it really does remind me of goddess powers. The way it dispelled his pestilence wave. She trailed off, her brow furrowing in thought. So, this tavern we're heading to, Naruto said, changing the subject. Will your friends be there? The 7 deadly sins. Elizabeth nodded, snapping out of her contemplation. Yes, at least some of them should be. Sir Meliodas, Diane, King, and probably Ban. Merlin and Escanor might be away on their own missions. And they'll help us figure out what's going on with this Lord Varrock guy. Absolutely, Elizabeth said with conviction. The sins are the most powerful knights in Britannia. If anyone can help us, and maybe help you understand what's happened to your powers, it's them. Naruto grinned. Then what are we waiting for? Lead the way, princess. Elizabeth smiled, a genuine expression that lit up her face. Just Elizabeth is fine. Elizabeth it is. Together, they continued through the forest, now moving with greater urgency. The encounter with Golgius had made it clear that V.A. Rick's forces were serious about capturing Elizabeth, and they needed to reach the safety of the Boar Hat before more knights found them. As they walked, Naruto felt Kurama stirring within him. This world has strange energies. The fox observed. Your chakra is responding to it, transforming into something neither fully chakra nor fully of this world. Any idea what it means? Naruto asked silently. No, but that girl. There's something about her that resonates with your new power. Did you notice how your energy responded when she was in danger? Naruto thought back to the battle, how the golden light had seemed to intensify when Golgius threatened Elizabeth directly. Yeah, I felt that. Be careful, Kit. We don't know enough about this world or these powers yet. When am I ever careful? Naruto thought with an internal grin. Kurama's sigh echoed in his mind. That's what worries me. The sun was beginning to set when they finally emerged from the forest onto a hilltop overlooking a small clearing. In the center stood what could only be the Boar Hat Tavern, a modest 2-story building with, as Elizabeth had described, a giant boar's head decorating its roof. We made it, Elizabeth said, relief evident in her voice. As they approached the tavern, the door burst open, and a short blonde man in a white shirt dashed out, moving with incredible speed despite his diminutive stature. Elizabeth, he called, his voice filled with concern. Sir Meliodas. Elizabeth's face lit up with joy. The man, Meliodas, reached them in seconds, his green eyes quickly scanning Elizabeth for injuries before turning a calculating gaze on Naruto. Who's your friend? He asked, his tone light but his eyes sharp and assessing. This is Naruto Uzumaki, Elizabeth explained. He saved me from Varrock's knights in the forest. Naruto. This is Meliodas, captain of the 7 deadly sins. Naruto studied the short man with interest. Despite his unimposing appearance, power radiated from him in waves, not visible like chakra, but palpable nonetheless. This was someone used to command, someone who had seen countless battles. Nice to meet you, Naruto said, extending his hand. Meliodas took it, with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. Any friend of Elizabeth's is welcome here, especially one who helps keep her safe. The strength in the small man's grip was surprising, but Naruto matched it without comment. They released hands, having taken each other's measure. Come inside, Meliodas said, his demeanor relaxing slightly. Sounds like you two have quite a story to tell. The interior of the Boar Hat was cozy and warm, with wooden tables scattered around a central bar. A few patrons sat drinking, but the tavern was relatively quiet. Behind the bar stood a beautiful woman with purple hair tied in twin tails, polishing glasses with practiced ease. Elizabeth, she called cheerfully. We were so worried. Hello, Elaine, Elizabeth replied with a smile. I'm fine, thanks to Naruto here. Elaine's curious gaze fell on Naruto, her eyes widening slightly as she seemed to sense something about him. Well, any rescuer of Elizabeth deserves a drink on the house. What'll it be? Before Naruto could answer, the door to the tavern slammed open again, and two more figures entered, a giant of a man with spiky white hair and a smaller, somewhat feminine-looking man with short brown hair and golden eyes. Elizabeth, the smaller one exclaimed, "You're safe." King, Ban, Meliodas nodded to them. Good timing. Elizabeth was just about to tell us what happened, and introduce her new friend. The white-haired giant, Ban, sauntered over, a lazy grin on his face as he assessed Naruto with half-lidded eyes. So who's the kid? Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto replied, meeting the man's gaze steadily. Something about Ban reminded him of Kakashi, the casual demeanor that masked lethal capability. He helped me escape from Varrock's Knights, Elizabeth explained. Including Sir Golgius. His statement caused a ripple of reaction through the Sins. Ban's eyebrows shot up, King's mouth fell open, and even Meliodas's casual smile slipped momentarily. Golgius, Meliodas repeated. He was supposed to be in the dungeon. Apparently, Varrock released him, Elizabeth said grimly. And he's changed. Bigger, stronger. He had strange green energy in his weapons. Demon energy, Ban muttered, his lazy demeanor falling away. Sounds like Varrock's continuing Hendrickson's work. Naruto looked between them, confused. Hendrickson, demon energy. I feel like I'm missing a lot of context here. Meliodas leaned against the bar, his green eyes now serious. It's a long story, but the short version is that some holy knights have been experimenting with demon blood to enhance their powers. It seems Lord Varrock has picked up where they left off. Elizabeth turned to Naruto. You should tell them how you defeated Golgius. All eyes turned to Naruto expectantly. It wasn't that impressive, he began. Uncomfortable with the attention, he shattered Golgius's armor with some kind of golden energy attack, Elizabeth continued, ignoring his modesty. And he blocked a pestilence wave with the same power. It was like nothing I've ever seen, almost like goddess powers, but different. King floated closer, literally floated, Naruto noticed with surprise, his golden eyes studying Naruto intently. Golden energy, can you show us? Naruto hesitated, then nodded. He held out his palm and concentrated, allowing the strange new power to flow through him. Golden light bloomed between his fingers, dancing and spiraling in complex patterns. The tavern fell silent as everyone stared at the display. That's unusual, Meliodas said after a moment, his voice carefully neutral. Ban leaned forward, his red eyes narrowing. Where exactly did you say you were from, kid? I didn't, Naruto replied, letting the golden light fade. But I'm not from this world. I was fighting an enemy in my homeland when something went wrong. I fell through space, I guess. Woke up in your forest with my chakra, my power, changed into this. Another world. King exchanged glances with Meliodas. Like the celestial realm. I don't know what that is, Naruto admitted. Where I'm from, we have shinobi, ninja, who use chakra to fight. No holy knights or demons or goddesses. Meliodas stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. Your power. It feels similar to Elizabeth's goddess powers, but there's something else mixed in. Something I've never felt before. Elizabeth nodded. That's what I thought too. It's like a combination of goddess power and something entirely new. Look, Naruto said, I don't know why I'm here or what's happening to my chakra. But Elizabeth helped me, and those knights were trying to hurt her. So I'm on your side until I figure out how to get home. Meliodas and Ban exchanged a look, some unspoken communication passing between them. Then Meliodas's serious expression melted into his casual grin once more. Well, any enemy of Varrock is a friend of ours, he declared. And anyone who protects Elizabeth has my gratitude. The tension in the room eased somewhat, though. Naruto could tell they still had questions about him. Before anyone could ask more, however, a small pink pig trotted into the room from a back door. What's all the commotion? It demanded in a surprisingly human voice. I was trying to nap. Naruto blinked. The pig talks. That's Sir Hawk, Elizabeth explained with a fond smile. Captain of the Order of Scraps Disposal. A very important position, the pig huffed. eyeing Naruto suspiciously. And who's this? I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto replied, deciding that a talking pig wasn't the strangest thing he'd encountered today. Nice to meet you, Sir Hawk. The pig seemed pleased at being addressed by his title. At least you have manners, unlike some people. He shot a pointed look at Ban, who merely grinned in response. Elizabeth, Meliodas said, his tone becoming serious once more, what exactly did Varrock's knights say when they tried to capture you? Elizabeth's expression darkened. They claimed my father is ill and that Varrock now speaks with his authority. They said the Sins have been declared enemies of the kingdom again. That's bullshit, Ban growled. The king was fine when we saw him last week. I know, Elizabeth agreed. I think Varrock has done something to my father. This is all happening too quickly to be natural. Meliodas nodded grimly. We've been hearing rumors of knights loyal to Varrock making moves throughout the kingdom. Hendrickson warned us that Varrock was ambitious, but I didn't expect him to move this openly. What about my sisters? Elizabeth asked, worry evident in her voice. As far as we know, they're safe. King assured her. Veronica is with Griamore, and Margaret is with Gilthunder. Both are powerful holy knights loyal to the true crown. Elizabeth relaxed slightly at this news. But concern still shadowed her features. We need to find out what's happened to father and stop Varrock before he tears the kingdom apart again. Agreed, Meliodas said, but we need to be smart about this. Varrock has the advantage of position and authority right now. If we rush in without a plan, we'll play right into his hands. Naruto, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. So what's the plan, then? I'm not great at sitting around when there's a fight to be had. Meliodas smiled, a spark of appreciation in his eyes. I think I'm going to like you, Naruto. He turned to the group at large. First, we need information. Ban, I want you to head to the capital tonight. Use your particular talents to get into the castle and find out what's happened to the king. Ban grinned wolfishly. Sneaking and stealing. My favorite combination. King, Meliodas continued, contact Diane and have her meet us at the rendezvous point. We'll need her strength if this comes to a fight. King nodded, a faint blush coloring his cheeks at the mention of Diane. Elaine, can you reach out to Merlin? Meliodas asked the barmaid. I'll try, she replied. But you know how she is. She only answers when she wants to. And me? Elizabeth asked. I won't sit idly by while my father is in danger. Meliodas's expression softened as he looked at her. You'll stay with me and our new friend here. If Varrock wants you badly enough to send Golgius, you're not safe anywhere alone. What about me? Hawk demanded, pawing the ground. I have important skills too. Of course you do, Meliodas agreed solemnly. You'll be our early warning system. No one can sniff out trouble like you, Sir Hawk. The pig preened at this, apparently satisfied with his assignment. Naruto watched these exchanges with interest, getting a feel for the group dynamics. Despite their casual banter, it was clear the 7 deadly sins were a well-oiled team, each with their own role to play. So, while they're doing all that, Naruto said to Meliodas, what will we be doing? Besides babysitting the princess, I mean. Elizabeth shot him a look that was half amusement, half annoyance. I hardly need babysitting. We, Meliodas replied with a grin that held a hint of mischief, will be paying a visit to an old friend who might know more about your strange powers. And perhaps about Varrock's real plan. Who? Elizabeth asked curiously. Zaneri, Meliodas answered. At the Druid's sacred ground. Elizabeth's eyes widened. You think the Druids might know something about Naruto's power? If anyone would, it's them, Meliodas confirmed. Plus, the sacred ground is well hidden and protected. It's one of the few places Varrock's forces won't be able to find us easily. Druids, Naruto repeated. Like, magic users. Something like that, Meliodas said with a shrug. They're keepers of ancient knowledge, including much about the goddess clan. If your power really is similar to goddess abilities, they might be able to explain why. Ban pushed away from the bar, stretching languidly. Well, I'd better get moving if I want to reach the capital by morning. Try not to have too much fun without me. Be careful, Elizabeth called after him. Ban waved dismissively without looking back. Immortal, remember, don't worry about me, worry about anyone stupid enough to get in my way. As the door closed behind him, Naruto turned to Meliodas. Immortal, Is he serious? Completely, Meliodas replied. Ban can't die. Useful trait in our line of work. Naruto shook his head in wonder. This world was getting stranger by the minute. You should get some rest, Meliodas told both Naruto and Elizabeth. We'll leave for the sacred ground at first light. Elizabeth nodded, suddenly looking exhausted. Now that the immediate danger had passed. There's a spare room upstairs, she told Naruto. I'll show you. As they climbed the stairs, Naruto felt the weight of the day's events settling on his shoulders. He had been thrown into a strange world with altered powers, fought mysterious knights, and allied himself with a group of legendary warriors, all before dinner. Just another Tuesday for you, Kit, Kurama commented dryly in his mind. Shut up, Naruto thought back without heat. Like our life in Konoha was ever boring. Elizabeth showed him to a small but clean room with a simple bed, a washbasin, and a window overlooking the forest. It's not much, she apologized, but it's comfortable. It's perfect, Naruto assured her. Thanks. Elizabeth lingered in the doorway, studying him with those unusual mismatched eyes. Thank you again for helping me today. You didn't have to get involved. Naruto shrugged. I'm not the type to walk away when someone needs help. Never have been. A soft smile curved her lips. I can tell. You remind me a bit of Meliodas in that way. The short blonde guy. I'll take that as a compliment, I guess. Elizabeth's smile widened. You should. He's the strongest person I know. Stronger than that Golgius guy. Much stronger, Elizabeth confirmed. Meliodas is special, even among the sins. Naruto sensed there was more to that story, but he was too tired to pursue it now. Well, I look forward to seeing what he can do tomorrow. Elizabeth nodded. Get some rest, Naruto. Something tells me you're going to need it. With that, she closed the door softly, leaving Naruto alone with his thoughts. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his hands. The golden energy came more easily now when he called it, dancing between his fingers like living light. It felt both familiar and alien, similar to his chakra in how it responded to his will, but different in its nature and expression. What do you think, Kurama? He asked silently. Any theories about what's happening to us? The fox was quiet for a moment before responding. This world's energy is reshaping your chakra, adapting it to function here. It's like learning a new language. The meaning is the same, but the words are different. And what about that goddess power Elizabeth mentioned? Why would my chakra change to resemble it? I don't know, Kurama admitted. But there's something about that girl. Something familiar. Did you notice the symbol in her orange eye? Naruto frowned. Yeah, what about it? It reminded me of something, but I can't place it. Get some sleep, Kit. Maybe these druids will have answers for us tomorrow. Naruto nodded, stretching out on the bed without bothering to remove his tattered jacket. Despite the strangeness of his situation and the many questions swirling in his mind, exhaustion quickly pulled him under. His last thought before sleep claimed him was of Elizabeth's smile and the strange connection he felt to her, as if they were two pieces of the same puzzle, somehow meant to find each other across worlds. Morning came all too soon, the first rays of sunlight streaming through the window to paint golden patterns across Naruto's face. He woke with a start, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings before the previous day's events came rushing back. Still here, he thought with a mixture of resignation and curiosity. Part of him had hoped it might all be a strange dream. Of course we're still here, Kurama replied. Did you expect to wake up in Konoha? A guy can hope. Naruto rose and inspected his clothing. His orange and black outfit was torn and dirty from his fall and subsequent battles. He frowned, wondering if he could find something else to wear in this strange world. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Naruto. Elizabeth's voice called softly. Are you awake? Yeah, come in, he replied, running a hand through his messy blonde hair in a futile attempt to tame it. The door opened to reveal Elizabeth, now dressed in a simple white blouse and skirt rather than her waitress uniform. In her arms, she carried a bundle of clothing. Good morning, she said with a smile. You might need something clean to wear. These belonged to Sir King before he changed. They might fit you. Naruto accepted the bundle gratefully. Thanks. These have definitely seen better days. He plucked at his torn jacket. I'll wait outside while you change, Elizabeth said, slipping back through the door. The clothes were simple but well made, a white shirt, brown trousers, and a blue vest. They fit reasonably well, though the shirt was a bit tight across his shoulders. Naruto tied his ninja headband around his forehead, unwilling to part with this reminder of home. When he emerged from the room, Elizabeth was waiting in the hallway. Her eyes widened slightly as she took in his appearance. "You look different," she said. Naruto grinned. "Good different or bad different?" A faint blush colored her cheeks. "Good. Definitely good." They made their way downstairs to find Meliodas already preparing for their journey. The tavern was empty now, the previous night's patrons long gone. "There he is," Meliodas said cheerfully. "Sleep well." "Well enough," Naruto replied. "Any word from your friends?" "Ban reached the capital," Meliodas confirmed. "He'll report back tonight. King has contacted Diane. She'll meet us on the way to the sacred ground. And the plan is still to see these druid people about whatever this is." Naruto held up his hand, letting Golden energy briefly dance across his palm. "That's right," Meliodas nodded. "Zenari might be able to tell us more about your power and how it relates to this world's magic. And, as I said, the sacred ground is well protected. Elizabeth will be safe there while we figure out our next move against Varrock." "I still think we should go directly to the castle," Elizabeth protested. "If my father is really ill, and walk right into Varrock's trap." Meliodas shook his head. "He's expecting that, Elizabeth. We need to be smarter." She sighed but didn't argue further. Hawk trotted into the room, a small pack strapped to his back. "I'm ready for adventure," he announced proudly. Naruto still couldn't quite get used to the talking pig, but he smiled nonetheless. "Looking good, Sir Hawk." The pig preened at the compliment. "At least someone appreciates my contributions." Meliodas rolled his eyes good-naturedly. "Everyone appreciates you, Hawk. Now, are we ready to move out?" At their nods, he led the way outside. To Naruto's surprise, the entire tavern began to rumble and shake. "What's happening?" he asked, alarmed. Elizabeth smiled. "You'll see." Before his eyes, massive green legs unfolded from beneath the building. The entire tavern rose into the air, supported by what appeared to be a gigantic pig, like Hawk, but the size of a small mountain. "What the?" Naruto stared in disbelief. "Meet Hawk Mama," Meliodas said with a grin. "Our transportation." "That's your mother?" Naruto asked Hawk weakly. "That's right," the pig replied proudly. "Isn't she magnificent?" "She's certainly big," Naruto managed. Elizabeth laughed at his expression. "Don't worry, she's very gentle. And much faster than walking." As if to prove her point, Hawk Mama began to move, her massive legs carrying the tavern forward with surprising grace for something so large. The motion was smooth enough that standing on the tavern's porch felt no different than standing on solid ground. "This world just keeps getting weirder," Naruto muttered. Meliodas clapped him on the shoulder. "You ain't seen nothing yet, kid." They traveled throughout the morning, the giant pig covering ground at an impressive pace. Meliodas explained that they were heading northeast, toward a mountain range where the druid sacred ground was hidden. As they journeyed, Naruto practiced with his new powers, trying to understand their limits and capabilities. He found that many of his familiar techniques had analogs in this new golden energy. He could still create something like the Rasengan, though it behaved differently, and he could form barriers and even enhance his physical abilities with the power. "It's fascinating," Elizabeth observed as she watched him create a golden clone that shimmered and moved like a mirror image of himself. "That's not goddess power, exactly, but it's similar. In my world, we call this technique the Shadow Clone Jutsu," Naruto explained as the golden clone dissipated. "Usually, I can make solid copies of myself, hundreds of them if needed. But with this energy, they're more like projections." "Still useful," Meliodas commented, joining them on the tavern's porch. "Distractions in battle can make all the difference." Naruto nodded. "I'm starting to get a feel for what this power can and can't do. It's stronger in some ways than my chakra, weaker in others. The important thing is that you're adapting," Meliodas said approvingly. "Many warriors would be lost without their familiar abilities." "I've always been good at improvising," Naruto replied with a grin. Their Seishin was interrupted by a distant rumbling sound, like thunder but continuous. "What's that?" Naruto asked, scanning the horizon. Meliodas smiled. "That would be Diane." As they watched, a figure appeared in the distance, moving toward them with incredible speed. At first, Naruto thought it must be some kind of giant animal or vehicle, but as it drew closer, he realized it was a person, a woman nearly 30 feet tall, with brown hair tied in twin tails and a revealing orange outfit. "Is everyone in this world either tiny or huge?" Naruto muttered. Hawk snorted. "Says the guy with whisker marks on his face. They're birthmarks." Naruto protested. The giant woman, Diane, reached them quickly, her long strides eating up the distance. She beamed when she saw them, her smile surprisingly sweet for someone who could step on a house. "Captain," she called happily. "Elizabeth." "Hello, Diane," Elizabeth waved. "Thank you for coming so quickly." "Of course," Diane replied. Her eyes fell on Naruto, and she leaned down, her face now uncomfortably close to the tavern. "And who's this cutie?" Naruto felt heat rise to his cheeks at being called cutie by a woman the size of a building. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. He's a friend," Meliodas explained. "From another world, apparently. He helped Elizabeth escape from Varrock's Knights." "Another world?" Diane's eyes widened with interest. "Like the demon realm?" "Not exactly," Naruto said. "Where I'm from, we don't have giants or talking pigs or whatever else is normal here." Diane giggled, the sound like musical thunder. "Well, any Fryan, D of the captain and Elizabeth is a friend of mine. Diane is our strongest sin in terms of raw power," Meliodas explained to Naruto. "She's a member of the giant clan." "I never would have guessed," Naruto said dryly. Diane pouted. "Is he making fun of me, Captain?" No, Meliodas assured her quickly. "Just getting used to our world. Apparently, they don't have giants where he comes from." "How boring," Diane declared. They continued their journey, now with Diane walking alongside Hawk Mama. The giant woman peppered Naruto with questions about his world, seemingly fascinated by the concept of ninja and chakra. By mid-afternoon, they had reached the foothills of a mountain range. Meliodas directed Hawk Mama to stop in a sheltered valley. "We'll continue on foot from here," he explained. "The entrance to the sacred ground is hidden, and Hawk Mama is a bit too conspicuous." "I'll keep watch out here," Diane offered. "If any of Varrock's Knights come looking, I'll make sure they regret it." Meliodas nodded gratefully. "Perfect. We shouldn't be more than a day or two." They gathered some supplies and set off into the mountains, following a narrow path that wound between towering peaks. Naruto walked beside Elizabeth, with Meliodas leading the way and Hawk trotting behind them. "So these druids," Naruto said conversationally, "they're experts on goddess powers." Elizabeth nodded. "They've preserved knowledge from the Holy War, the ancient conflict between the goddess and demon clans. They can sense magical abilities and sometimes even help people develop them." "And you they might know why my chakra changed when I came to this world." "If anyone would, it's Zaneri," Elizabeth confirmed. "She's one of the oldest and wisest of the druids." The path grew steeper as they climbed higher into the mountains. Naruto noticed that despite the difficult terrain, Elizabeth kept pace without complaint, her determination evident in every step. "You're tougher than you look," he observed. She smiled. "I've had to be. When you travel with the 7 deadly sins, you learn to keep up or get left behind." "I know the feeling," Naruto replied, thinking of his own teammates. Why friends back home weren't exactly the type to slow down for anyone either. "Tell me about them," Elizabeth suggested. "Your friends, I mean." As they walked, Naruto told her about Sakura and Sasuke, about Kakashi-sensei and the rest of the Konoha 11. He spoke of Gaara and the Sand siblings, of Jiraiya and Tsunade, and all the others who had shaped his life. Elizabeth listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions that showed genuine interest. In turn, she shared stories of her adventures with the Sins, their battles against the 10 Commandments, their quest to break a curse that had bound Meliodas to endless reincarnation, and their eventual triumph against the Demon King himself. So Meliodas was actually the son of the Demon King? Naruto asked, impressed. "That's intense." "It was a difficult time," Elizabeth acknowledged. "But he chose his own path, just as you chose yours despite the 9 tails sealed within you." Naruto glanced at her in surprise. You remembered that detail. She nodded. Of course. It sounds like we have something in common, both housing powers greater than ourselves. Before Naruto could respond, Meliodas held up a hand, signaling them to stop. They had reached what appeared to be a dead end, a sheer cliff face with no visible path forward. We're here, he announced. Naruto looked around in confusion. I don't see anything. Meliodas approached the cliff, placing his palm against the smooth stone. That's the point. The sacred ground is hidden from those who would abuse its power. As he spoke, the rock beneath his hand began to glow with a soft blue light. The light spread outward in intricate patterns, forming symbols Naruto didn't recognize. With a low rumbling sound, the cliff face shimmered and vanished, revealing a hidden passage beyond. Whoa, Naruto breathed. Magic barrier, Hawk explained importantly. Only those permitted by the druids can pass through. They entered the passage, which soon opened into a breathtaking valley nestled between mountain peaks. Unlike the barren rocks outside, this hidden place was lush with vegetation, flowering trees, crystal-clear streams, and carefully tended gardens. Stone buildings dotted the landscape, their architecture ancient yet somehow timeless. Women in flowing white robes moved about the valley, some tending plants, others carrying water or scrolls. All of them paused to watch the newcomers with curious eyes. It's beautiful, Naruto said softly. The druids have maintained this sanctuary for thousands of years, Elizabeth explained. It's one of the few places untouched by the Holy War. A woman approached them, her long blue hair flowing around a serene face marked with small symbols beneath her eyes. Despite her youthful appearance, something in her gaze spoke of great age and wisdom. Meliodas, she greeted the Sin Captain. Elizabeth, you returned to us in troubled times. Hello, Zenari, Meliodas replied with a respectful nod. We need your help. Zenari's gaze shifted to Naruto, her eyes widening slightly. And who is this? He carries a most unusual energy. This is Naruto Uzumaki, Elizabeth introduced him. He's not from our world. Indeed, Zenari murmured, studying him with interest. I can see that clearly. The fabric of reality around you is disturbed, like ripples in a pond. Naruto bowed slightly, sensing the woman's importance. Nice to meet you. Zenari circled him slowly, her eyes never leaving his form. Fascinating. Your power, it's unlike anything I've encountered. Not goddess, not demon, not giant or fairy or human, yet somehow, all of them at once. We were hoping you might have some insight, Meliodas said. Naruto says his power, chakra, he calls it, changed when he arrived in our world. May I? Zenari asked, extending her hand toward Naruto. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. Zenari placed her palm against his chest, directly over his heart. Her hand glowed with soft white light, and Naruto felt a gentle probing sensation. As if someone were leafing through the pages of a book within him. Extraordinary, she murmured. You carry the essence of a great beast, a fox with 9 tails, yet it's bonded with you, not possessing you. And your natural energy, it's being transformed by our world, resonating with the power of the goddess clan but retaining its original nature. Is that why it appears golden? Elizabeth asked. Because it's becoming like goddess power. Zenari removed her hand, her expression thoughtful. Not exactly. It's more that his power and goddess power share certain frequencies. Like two instruments playing in harmony but producing distinct notes. Can you tell why I was brought here? Naruto asked. Or how I can get home? That is a more difficult question, Zenari admitted. The boundaries between worlds are not easily crossed. For you to have come here suggests either great purpose or great catastrophe. That's not exactly reassuring, Naruto muttered. Come, Zenari said, gesturing toward one of the larger buildings. Let us discuss this further inside. There is much to explain, and these are not matters to be spoken of in the open. As they followed her, Naruto caught Elizabeth watching him with a mixture of curiosity and concern. Don't worry, he told her with a confident smile. Whatever's happening, we'll figure it out. She returned his smile, though worry still shadowed her eyes. I hope so, for both our world's sakes. Inside the stone building, Zenari led them to a circular chamber lit by glowing crystals. A large pool of water occupied the center of the room, its surface perfectly still and mirror-like. This is the pool of vision, Zaneri explained. It allows us to see things hidden from ordinary sight, the past, sometimes glimpses of possible futures. And the true nature of power. She gestured for Naruto to approach the pool. Look into the water and channel your energy, your chakra. Let us see what the pool reveals. Naruto knelt beside the still water, feeling somewhat foolish but willing to try anything that might provide answers. He extended his hand over the surface and allowed his golden energy to flow. The pool responded immediately, its surface rippling as if disturbed by an unseen wind. Colors swirled within its depths. Gold, silver, red, blue, forming patterns and images too quick to follow. Interesting, Zaneri murmured, kneeling opposite Naruto. I see two worlds in collision. Yours, a land of hidden villages and ancient spirits bound to human vessels. And ours, Britannia, home to 5 races and powers beyond mortal comprehension. The water's surface suddenly stilled, revealing a clear image. A tree of immense proportions, its roots extending into endless darkness, its branches reaching toward countless stars. The divine tree, Elizabeth gasped. But it's different somehow. It spans both worlds, Zaneri confirmed. In Naruto's world, it manifests one way. In ours, another. But it is the same entity, a bridge between realities. I've seen trees like that, Naruto said, remembering the god tree from the 4th Great Ninja War. During the war in my world, Madara used one to cast the infinite Tsukuyomi. In our world, Meliodas added, the sacred tree was said to connect all realms, the human world, the fairy king's forest, the giant's nest, the goddess realm, and the demon realm. They are one and the same, Zaneri declared. And now, the tree is awakening once more, drawing together what was separated long ago. The water shifted again, now showing a face that made Naruto's blood run cold, a man with pale skin, white hair, and alien eyes filled with concentric circles. Who is that? Elizabeth asked, noticing Naruto's reaction. Otsutsuki, Naruto growled. The clan that first brought chakra to my world. They harvest it from planet to planet using the divine trees. And in our world, Zaneri said gravely, they were known by another name, the Celestials. Beings who existed before both the goddess and demon clans. Who seeded our world with the power that eventually divided into the distinct magics of the 5 races. The pool's surface churned once more, revealing a new figure, a man with elegant features. Silver hair, and eyes that shifted between colors with every blink. Azrael, Zaneri whispered, genuine fear in her voice. The divine harvester. Who's that? Naruto asked, not liking the way the druid woman's composure had slipped. A celestial who was sealed away during the ancient war, before even the conflict between goddesses and demons, Zaneri explained. Quote, it was said he sought to harvest the power of all realms at once, collapsing them into a single point of energy that he alone would control. And you think he's back? Meliodas asked sharply. The signs point to it, Zaneri confirmed. The disturbances in magic that we've been sensing, the sudden crossing between worlds. She looked directly at Naruto. Your arrival here is no accident. Something, or someone, is manipulating events, drawing together threads of fate that were meant to remain separate. But why me? Naruto pressed. What do I have to do with any of this? The pool's surface shifted one final time, splitting into 2 images side by side. Naruto wreathed in golden chakra, and Elizabeth with her goddess powers fully manifested, her body glowing with silver light. The convergence, Zaneri breathed. It was prophesied, but I never thought to see it in my lifetime. What convergence? Elizabeth asked, her voice barely above a whisper. When 2 vessels of divine power, from separate worlds but kindred spirits, stand together against the harvester, Zaneri recited, as if from memory. Their unified light shall either mend the breaking of worlds or hasten their destruction. A heavy silence fell over the chamber as the implications of her words sank in. So basically, Naruto finally said, either Elizabeth and I save everything or destroy everything. No pressure or anything. Despite the gravity of the situation, Elizabeth laughed softly. You have a gift for simplifying things. It's more complicated than that, Zaneri cautioned. The prophecy speaks of choices yet to be made. Paths yet to be walked. Nothing is certain, except that this Azrael guy is bad news, and somehow he's connected to Varrick's power grab in Leones, Meliodas summarized. The question is, what's our next move? Before Zaneri could respond, a young druid woman burst into the chamber, her face pale with fear. "Lady Zaneri," she cried, "we're under attack. Holy Knights have breached the outer barrier." Meliodas was on his feet instantly. "How many?" "At least 20, the woman replied, trembling. "Led by a man in black armor who can teleport." "Golgius," Elizabeth said grimly. "He followed us somehow." "Impossible," Zaneri declared. "The sacred ground cannot be found by those who mean it harm." "Unless they had help," Meliodas suggested darkly. "Someone who knows the way. We can figure that out later," Naruto said, already moving toward the door. "Right now, we need to protect this place." Elizabeth nodded, determination replacing fear in her eyes. "I'll help evacuate the druids who can't fight. I'll find Hawk and make sure he's safe," Meliodas added. "Naruto, can you hold them off until I get back?" Naruto grinned, golden energy already swirling around his hands. "Oh, I think I can manage that." Outside, chaos had erupted in the peaceful valley. Holy Knights in various armors were advancing from the hidden entrance, their weapons glowing with power. Some druids fled before them, while others stood their ground, erecting magical barriers that the knights systematically destroyed. At the center of the invasion force stood Golgius, now clad in new black armor even more imposing than his previous set. Green energy pulsed through runes etched into the metal, and his massive hammer seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Find the princess," he bellowed to his men. "Lord Varrock wants her alive." Naruto surveyed the situation quickly. The knights were spreading out, threatening to encircle the main druid buildings. He needed to funnel them, control their movement. Golden energy surged through him as he leapt from the building's steps, landing in the center of the valley where all could see him. Looking for someone, he called to Golgius. The giant knight turned slowly, his helmet concealing his expression but not the hatred in his voice. "You, the boy who interfered before." "That's right," Naruto confirmed, channeling more power into his hands. "And I'm about to interfere a whole lot more." He slammed his palms into the ground. Golden energy raced outward in jagged lines, splitting the earth in a pattern that forced the knight's to cluster together or fall into the newly formed chasms. "Impressive," Golgius acknowledged, "but futile." He teleported, reappearing directly behind Naruto with his hammer raised. This time, Naruto was ready. Without turning, he created a golden barrier that blocked the hammer's downward arc. The impact sent shockwaves through the ground, but the barrier held. "You're predictable," Naruto taunted, spinning to face the knight. "Always attacking from behind. No wonder you lost last time." Golgius growled, his hammer pulsing with sickly green light. "I've been enhanced since our last encounter, boy. Lord Varrock has shared power beyond your comprehension." "Let me guess," Naruto replied, circling the massive knight warily. "This Azrael guy, the divine harvester." The knight froze momentarily, surprise evident even through his armor. "How do you know that name?" "I know a lot of things," Naruto bluffed, seeing he'd struck a nerve. "I know Varrock is just a puppet. I know Azrael is using him to gather power. And I know you're nothing but a disposable pawn." "Lies," Golgius roared, charging forward with surprising speed. Naruto leapt over him, forming a golden Rasengan-like sphere in his palm. As he descended, he drove it into the knight's back, between the shoulder blades. The armor cracked but didn't break completely. Golgius staggered but remained standing. He spun with unexpected agility and caught Naruto with a glancing blow from his hammer. Even this indirect hit sent Naruto flying across the valley, crashing through a small stone structure. Pain lanced through his ribs as he pulled himself from the rubble. That had hurt, more than it should have. The knight's power had indeed increased significantly. "Careful, Kit," Kurama warned. "That green energy, it's corrosive to our chakra. Like poison." Naruto nodded grimly, watching as Golgius advanced toward him once more. Behind the giant knight, his men were engaging with the druids and pushing toward the main building's Here Elizabeth was helping with the evacuation. "Time to get serious," Naruto decided. He closed his eyes briefly, centering himself. When he opened them, his pupils had changed. Now slitted like a fox's, the blue irises ringed with gold. Golden energy erupted around him, forming a translucent cloak that mimicked the Nine-Tails chakra mode from his world, complete with flickering ear-like projections above his head. What is this? Golgius demanded, hesitating for the first time. This is me not holding back, Naruto replied, his voice deepened and resonant with power. He moved in a golden flash, faster than the eye could track. One moment he stood amid the rubble, the next he was directly in front of Golgius, his fist connecting with the knight's chest plate. The black armor shattered on impact, pieces flying in all directions as Golgius was hurled backward through multiple stone structures. The other knights paused in their advance, staring in shock at the display of power. Naruto turned to face them, his glowing form casting long shadows across the valley floor. Anyone else want to try their luck? Several knights exchanged glances before slowly backing away. Others stood their ground, though fear was evident in their postures. Stand fast, a new voice commanded. A figure emerged from the entrance passage, a tall, elegant man in ornate armor of deep blue and silver. Unlike the other knights, he wore no helmet, revealing handsome features framed by long black hair. His eyes were cold and calculating as they assessed Naruto's transformed state. Lord Varrick, one of the knights acknowledged, bowing his head. So this was the man behind the coup in Lyons, Naruto thought. He didn't look particularly impressive, but Naruto had learned long ago not to judge opponents by appearance alone. Interesting, Varrick said, studying Naruto with clinical detachment. You must be the anomaly my master sensed. The one from beyond the veil. And you must be the puppet I've heard so much about, Naruto replied evenly. Varrick's composed expression flickered briefly with anger before smoothing once more. Bold words from someone who doesn't understand the forces at play. My master has seen across worlds, boy. He knows what you are, what you contain. Then he should know better than to mess with me, Naruto said, allowing more of Kurama's power to flow through him. The golden aura intensified, forming multiple tail-like projections behind him. Varrick smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. Perhaps, but does he know better than to mess with her? He gestured, and one of the knights stepped forward, dragging a struggling figure, Elizabeth, her silver hair unmistakable even from a distance. Naruto's heart dropped. Let her go. I think not, Varrick replied coolly. She is quite valuable to my master's plans. As are you, though in a different way. Golgius had regained his feet, his armor ruined but his massive frame still imposing as he rejoined his lord. Shall I kill him, my lord? No, Varrick said sharply. My master wants him alive if possible. His power must be studied. Elizabeth continued to struggle against her captor. Naruto, don't worry about me. Stop Varrick before. The knight holding her clamped a hand over her mouth, silencing her. Naruto's eyes narrowed, his mind racing. He could probably reach Elizabeth with his enhanced speed. But Varrick clearly had powers of his own. The risk was too great. What does your master want? He asked, playing for time. Where was Meliodas? He should have returned by now. To restore what was broken, Varrick replied cryptically. To reunite worlds that were foolishly separated. To harvest the divine energy that has been squandered on lesser beings. By killing everyone, Naruto translated. Yeah, I've heard this song before. It wasn't original then either. Varrick's cold smile never wavered. Mock if you wish, it changes nothing. Now, surrender yourself, or watch the princess suffer. The knight holding Elizabeth drew a knife, pressing it against her throat. Naruto tensed, preparing to move, when a new voice cut through the standoff. That's quite enough of that. A wave of oppressive power washed over the valley as Meliodas stepped into view. Though his appearance hadn't changed, still the same short blonde man in simple clothes, something fundamental had shifted. The air around him seemed darker somehow, as if light itself hesitated to touch him. Varrick's composure cracked, genuine fear flashing across his face. The dragon's sin of wrath. The one and only, Meliodas confirmed. His usual cheerful tone replaced by something cold and dangerous. Now, I believe you're holding someone who belongs with us. He took a step forward, and the ground beneath his feet cracked. The knights nearest to him backed away instinctively. You're too late, Meliodas, Varrick declared, though his voice lacked conviction. My master has already begun the convergence. The world you know is ending. Funny, Meliodas replied, taking another step forward. People keep saying that, but here we still are. Naruto seized the moment of distraction. Drawing on his golden power, he Three glowing clones that burst from his aura, each racing toward Elizabeth from different angles. The knight holding her didn't know which to track, his head swiveling frantically between the approaching figures. In his confusion, his grip on Elizabeth loosened. She took immediate advantage, driving her elbow hard into his solar plexus. As he doubled over, she twisted free, her right eye blazing with orange light. "Arc!" she cried, extending her hand. A blast of pure white light erupted from her palm, striking the knight square in the chest. He flew backward, his armor crumbling to dust around him as he hit the ground. Unconscious or worse, Naruto's eyes widened. So the princess had powers of her own after all. Varrick snarled, his cool facade finally cracking completely. "Kill them! Kill them all!" The knights charged forward as one, weapons glowing with various energies. Golgius teleported directly toward Elizabeth, clearly intent on recapturing her. Naruto moved without thinking, his golden form flashing across the distance to intercept the massive knight. They collided with bone-jarring force, Naruto's power against Golgius's enhanced strength. "You can't protect her forever," Golgius growled. "I don't need forever," Naruto replied. "Just long enough to beat you." He formed another golden Rasengan, this one larger and more stable than before. With a shout, he drove it directly into Golgius's unprotected chest. The impact lifted the knight off his feet and sent him spinning through the air like a child's toy. He crashed into the cliff face at the edge of the valley, the rock cracking around his massive form before he slumped to the ground, motionless. Meanwhile, Meliodas had engaged Varrick directly. The contrast between them was almost comical, the short, boyish-looking Sin against the tall, elegant lord. But it quickly became apparent that appearances were deceiving. Meliodas moved with blinding speed, his sword, drawn from nowhere that Naruto could see, leaving trails of darkness as it clashed with Varrick's own blade. Each impact sent shockwaves through the valley, shattering windows and cracking stone. "You've made a grave mistake, Varrick," Meliodas said, his voice carrying despite the chaos around them. "Threatening Elizabeth. That's a good way to make me angry. You really don't want to see me angry." "Your threats mean nothing," Varrick replied, though sweat beaded on his brow as he parried Meliodas's relentless attacks. "My master has shown me the true face of power. You're nothing but a remnant, dragon's sin. A shadow of true divinity. Big talk from someone who's losing," Meliodas observed, increasing the speed of his attacks until his sword was a blur of motion. Varrick's defense began to falter, his elegant swordplay giving way to desperate parries. A cut appeared on his cheek, then another across his arm, his armor offering little protection against Meliodas's blade. The other knights were faring no better. Between Naruto's golden clones, Elizabeth's goddess powers, and the druids who had joined the fight, they were being systematically defeated. Seeing his forces crumbling, Varrick made a desperate decision. He leapt back from Meliodas, raising his free hand high. "Convergence key," he shouted. The air around his hand rippled and tore, revealing a swirling vortex of darkness. From within it, he drew a crystalline object, quartz that pulsed with sickly light, similar to the green energy in Golgius's hammer but more concentrated, more malevolent. "Master," Varrick called to the void. "I require your intervention." The crystal in his hand shattered, releasing a torrent of energy that engulfed him completely. When it faded, Varrick was transformed. His armor fused to his body, his eyes glowing with the same sickly light, his entire form enlarged and distorted. "Behold the first gift of the divine harvester," he proclaimed, his voice now layered with inhuman overtones. "A taste of the power that awaits those who serve faithfully." Meliodas's eyes narrowed. "Elizabeth, Naruto," he called without taking his gaze from the transformed Varrick. "Get everyone to safety. This just got complicated." "We're not leaving you," Elizabeth protested. "Not a chance," Naruto agreed, moving to stand beside the Sin captain. Varrick laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally. "How touching. 3 insects instead of 1. It changes nothing." He raised his transformed hand, now ending in vicious claws rather than human fingers. Energy gathered around it, coalescing into a sphere of roiling darkness shot through with green lightning. "Celestial ruin," he intoned. The sphere expanded rapidly, threatening to engulf them all. Meliodas dashed forward, his sword raised to strike at Varrick before the attack could fully form. But the transformed lord was faster than before. sidestepping the blow with inhuman grace. Too slow, dragon's sin, he taunted. The sphere continued to grow, now the size of a small house and still expanding. Naruto could feel the wrongness of the energy it contained, not just destructive, but corrupting, as if it would rewrite the very nature of anything it touched. Elizabeth, he called urgently, can you counter this? She shook her head, her expression grim. Not alone. This power, it's beyond any demon energy I've encountered. An idea struck Naruto, risky, but they were out of options. Then not alone, he said, extending his hand to her. Together. Elizabeth hesitated for only a moment before grasping his outstretched hand. The moment their fingers touched, Naruto felt a surge of power unlike anything he'd experienced before. His golden energy and her silver-white light began to merge, spiraling around their joined hands in a double helix pattern. Focus on containment, Kurama advised within him. Let her purifying power mix with our raw strength. Naruto nodded, concentrating on shaping their combined energy. Between their raised hands, a new sphere formed, this one glowing with a pearlescent light that was neither gold nor silver but something entirely new. What is this? Varrick demanded, his confidence faltering at the sight. Convergence, Naruto replied, understanding flowing through him with the shared power. But not the kind your master wants. Together, he and Elizabeth thrust their hands forward, sending the pearlescent sphere to meet Varrick's dark creation. The two energies collided in midair, neither immediately overpowering the other. For a moment, they hung in perfect balance, corruption versus purification, destruction versus protection. Then, slowly, the pearlescent light began to engulf the darkness, consuming it from the outside in. Varrick's eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible. Nothing's impossible, Naruto replied through gritted teeth, maintaining his connection with Elizabeth despite the strain it placed on both of them. Especially when you have something worth fighting for. With a final surge of combined will, they pushed their power through the last of Varrick's attack. The pearlescent sphere rushed forward, striking the transformed lord directly in the chest. There was no explosion, no dramatic blast, simply a flash of pure light that momentarily blinded everyone in the valley. When it faded, Varrick stood frozen, his transformed body cracking like pottery left too long in the kiln. Master, he whispered, reaching toward the sky with a disintegrating hand. I failed you. Then he collapsed, his body crumbling to dust that scattered on the sudden breeze. In the silence that followed, Naruto and Elizabeth remained connected, their joined hands still glowing with the combined power they had unleashed. Slowly, the light faded, leaving them both exhausted but standing. That, Meliodas observed, sheathing his sword, was impressive. Elizabeth swayed on her feet, and Naruto steadied her with an arm around her shoulders. Are you okay? He asked quietly. She nodded, though her face was pale. Just drained. I've never channeled power like that before. Me neither, Naruto admitted. It was intense. Meliodas approached Varrick's remains, kneeling to examine the dust that had once been a man. This isn't over, he said grimly. Whatever Varrick channeled, whatever this divine harvester is, it's still out there. And it knows about us now, Elizabeth added softly. About what we can do together. Naruto looked at her, suddenly aware of how natural it felt to have her beside him, how right their powers had seemed when joined. It was a connection he'd never experienced before, not with Sakura, not with any of his friends in Konoha. Let it come, he said with more confidence than he felt. We'll be ready. As the remaining knights fled or surrendered, and the druids began tending to the wounded and repairing their sanctuary. Naruto gazed up at the sky. Somewhere beyond it, he knew, lay his home world, and between them, a power that sought to consume them both. The path ahead was uncertain, the enemy still largely unknown. But standing here, with Elizabeth's warmth against his side and Meliodas's unwavering strength before him, Naruto felt something he hadn't expected to find in this strange new world, purpose. And perhaps, something more. Chapter 1 End. Divine Convergence Chapter 2. Sacred Bonds. Dawn broke over the druid sacred ground, painting the hidden valley in hues of gold and amber. Naruto sat cross-legged atop a flat stone overlooking the main temple, his eyes closed in meditation. Golden energy flickered around his form, sometimes stable, sometimes wild and unpredictable. You're thinking too much, Meliodas' voice came from behind him. Let it flow naturally. Naruto opened one eye, glancing at the Sin captain who approached with casual ease. Easier said than done. This power still feels foreign. Meliodas sat beside him, his legs dangling over the edge of the stone. Despite his boyish appearance, there was ancient wisdom in his green eyes as he studied Naruto's aura. That's because you're fighting it, he observed. You're trying to make it behave like your chakra, but it's not the same thing anymore. Then what is it? Naruto asked, letting the golden energy dissipate. Zenari called it a resonance with goddess powers, but it doesn't work like Elizabeth's abilities. Because you're not a goddess, Meliodas said with a small smile. You're something new, a fusion of your world's energy system and ours. Naruto sighed, running a hand through his spiky blonde hair. 3 days had passed since the battle with Varrick, and while the Druids had continued to study both him and the lingering energy from the transformed lord, answers remained frustratingly elusive. Try something for me, Meliodas suggested. Instead of forcing your power into the shapes you knew, listen to what it wants to become. Power doesn't want anything, Naruto replied skeptically. Meliodas chuckled. In your world, maybe. But here, magic responds to emotion, to desire. It's alive in its own way. He stood, drawing his sword in a fluid motion. Let me show you. The blade in Meliodas's hand began to darken, as if absorbing the light around it. Soon, it appeared to be made of shadows rather than metal, darkness dripping from its edge like liquid night. This is my full counter, Meliodas explained. It's not just a technique, it's an expression of who I am. Of my nature as the son of the demon king who chose a different path. Naruto watched, fascinated despite himself. So you're saying my power is trying to tell me something about myself? Exactly, Meliodas confirmed, sheathing his sword. The darkness vanished as if it had never been. You're not just a visitor here, Naruto. There's a reason your chakra transformed the way it did. You just need to discover what that reason is. Naruto considered this, then nodded slowly. He closed his eyes again, this time not forcing the energy to take familiar forms but allowing it to emerge naturally. The golden light returned, spiraling around him like curious tendrils. Unlike before, it didn't form a cloak or concentrate in his palms. Instead, it created intricate patterns in the air, symbols that reminded him vaguely of the sealing jutsu he'd seen Jiraiya use, but with a flowing, organic quality unique to this world. There you go, Meliodas said softly. That's more like it. Naruto opened his eyes, watching the golden symbols dance around him. They responded to his thoughts now, shifting and rearranging themselves without conscious direction. It felt right, somehow. Natural. It's like written magic, he murmured. Sacred arts, Meliodas confirmed. Similar to what the Druids use, but with your own twist. Each symbol represents a concept: protection, destruction, healing, enhancement. Naruto focused on one symbol in particular, a spiral surrounded by straight lines that radiated outward like sunbeams. As he concentrated on it, the symbol grew brighter, detaching from the others to hover before him. That one means connection, a new voice observed. Elizabeth approached, her silver hair catching the morning light. She wore simple druid robes today, the white fabric emphasizing her ethereal beauty. Naruto found himself momentarily distracted by the sight. Good morning, she greeted them both with a smile. I see the training is going well. He's a quick study, Meliodas replied. Once he stops overthinking things. Naruto let the symbols fade, suddenly self-conscious. I still have a lot to learn. Don't we all? Elizabeth said, settling beside him on the stone. Zenari has been teaching me more about goddess abilities I never knew I had. It seems being near you has awakened something. Naruto raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? My powers have always been inconsistent. Elizabeth explained. They emerge in moments of great need, but I've never had full control over them. Since you arrived, though, they've been stronger, more accessible. The resonance works both ways. Meliodas mused. Interesting. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sounds of the druids going about their morning rituals. Naruto found his gaze drawn to Elizabeth's profile. to the way the sunlight illuminated her features and caught in her mismatched eyes. She must have sensed his attention, for she turned to meet his gaze with a questioning smile. "What is it?" "Nothing," Naruto replied quickly, looking away. "Just thinking about what Zenari said, about us being connected somehow." "The convergence," Elizabeth nodded. "It's been on my mind as well." Meliodas stood, stretching casually. "Well, I'll leave you two to discuss that. Ban should be returning with news from the capital today, and I want to be ready to move when he does." As he walked away, Naruto couldn't help but feel he'd orchestrated this moment alone with Elizabeth. The Sin captain was more perceptive than his carefree demeanor suggested. "How are you really doing?" Elizabeth asked once Meliodas was out of earshot. "With everything that's happened," Naruto shrugged, trying for nonchalance. "I've been thrown into stranger situations. At least no one's trying to extract Kurama from me here." "Kurama," Elizabeth repeated. "The nine-tailed fox inside you." "Yeah," Naruto confirmed. "We've become partners over time, but it wasn't always that way." "What's he like?" she asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Naruto smiled. "Grumpy, proud, surprisingly wise when he wants to be. But don't tell him I said that." "I heard that," Kurama rumbled within him. "You were meant to," Naruto replied silently. Elizabeth laughed softly, the sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "He can hear us. He can hear everything," Naruto confirmed. "And he's not shy about offering his opinions." "Tell her I approve of her," Kurama said unexpectedly. Naruto blinked in surprise. "He says he approves of you." A faint blush colored Elizabeth's cheeks. "Oh, that's good to know." Another silence fell between them, this one charged with something Naruto couldn't quite name. He found himself acutely aware of her presence beside him, the subtle scent of flowers that clung to her hair. The gentle rise and fall of her breath, the warmth that seemed to radiate from her. "Do you miss your home?" she asked suddenly, her eyes on the horizon. Naruto considered the question carefully. "Yes and no. I miss my friends, of course. Sakura, Kakashi-sensei, everyone from the village. But, she prompted when he hesitated. But there's something about this world that feels, I don't know, like I was meant to find it," he admitted. "Maybe it's this new power, or maybe it's," he stopped himself, suddenly uncertain of what he'd been about to say. Elizabeth turned to him, her gaze soft and understanding. "Maybe it's what?" Before Naruto could respond, a shout from below drew their attention. A druid messenger was running toward the temple, waving urgently. "Sir Meliodas," the young woman called. "Sir Ban has returned with news from the capital." Elizabeth was on her feet immediately, concern replacing the gentle expression she'd worn moments before. "We should go," Naruto nodded, pushing aside the strange moment of connection they'd shared. Whatever he'd been about to confess would have to wait. They found Meliodas, Ban, and several of the druid elders, including Zenari, gathered in the central chamber of the temple. Ban looked unusually serious, his customary lazy grin nowhere to be seen. "What did you find?" Meliodas asked without preamble. "Nothing good," Ban replied grimly. "The king is alive, but he's being kept under constant protection by knights loyal to Varrick's faction. Gilthunder and Hauser are trying to maintain order among the knights who haven't joined Varrick. But they're outnumbered." "What about my sisters?" Elizabeth asked anxiously. "Veronica's with Griamore, leading a resistance of sorts in the eastern provinces," Ban reported. "Margaret's under house arrest in the castle, but Gilthunder's keeping an eye on her. They're both safe, for now." Elizabeth sighed in relief. "And my father? You said he's alive, but is he well?" Ban's expression darkened. "That's where things get weird. He's not sick, exactly, but he's changed. His eyes have this strange glow, and he speaks in riddles more than usual. The Nai Ts say Varrick's personal physician is treating him, but you think he's being controlled somehow," Meliodas finished. "Something like that," Ban agreed. "And there's more. Even with Varrick gone, his faction hasn't collapsed. If anything, they've become more organized. Someone else is pulling the strings now." "Azrael," Naruto guessed. "The Divine Harvester." Ban's red eyes flicked to him with newfound respect. "That name's being whispered in the shadows of the castle. No one says it openly, but there are rumors of a new power behind the throne, someone who promised Varrick abilities beyond Holy Knight magic." Zenari stepped forward, her serene face troubled. This confirms our worst fears. Azrael is using Leones as a foothold in our world. But why? Elizabeth asked. What does he gain by controlling one kingdom? Access. Zenari replied gravely. Leones sits at a convergence point of ley lines, magical currents that flow through Britannia. With control of those lines, Azrael could potentially tap into enough power to begin the convergence ritual. Which would do what, exactly? Naruto asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Collapse the boundaries between worlds, Zenari explained. Drawing them together until they merge, or more likely, until they destroy each other in the process. The resulting release of energy would be immense. And Azrael would harvest this energy. Meliodas concluded. Becoming what? A god. Something beyond even that, Zenari said softly. A being of pure power, unconstrained by physical form or the laws of any single reality. The implications hung heavy in the air, a silence broken only when Ban let out a low whistle. Well, shit, he said eloquently. So we're fighting someone who wants to eat the universe. Tuesday as usual for us, I guess. Despite the gravity of the situation, Naruto found himself smiling at the immortal's cavalier attitude. It reminded him of his own determination in the face of seemingly impossible odds. So what's our next move? He asked, looking between Meliodas and Zenari. Zenari turned to a large map of Britannia spread across a stone table. We need to understand more about the connection between your world and ours. Naruto. The pool of vision showed us the divine tree spans both realities, but we need to know why and how. I believe King might help with that, Meliodas suggested. The fairy clan has the oldest records of the sacred tree. If anyone knows its true nature, it would be them. The fairy king's forest, then, Elizabeth nodded. There's something else, Ban added, his expression becoming even more serious. When I was in the capital, I overheard Hendrickson talking to one of Varrick's former lieutenants, a woman named Selena. Hendrickson. Elizabeth's eyes widened. But he's reformed. He's been helping us. I know, Ban agreed. That's what made me listen closer. He was warning her, not conspiring with her. He said Azrael would consume her just as he consumed Varrick. That the power she was being offered would come at the cost of her humanity. And what did this Selena say? Meliodas asked. A wolfish grin spread across Ban's face. She said humanity was overrated. And she'd gladly trade it for the power to negate goddess magic. Then she tried to kill him. Would have succeeded too, if I hadn't stepped in. Negate goddess magic, Elizabeth repeated, alarmed. Is that possible? Apparently, Ban replied, rolling up his sleeve to reveal a strange, blackened burn on his forearm. Got this when I pushed Hendrickson out of the way. Whatever power she's using, it's nasty stuff. Burns like acid and doesn't heal right, even with my immortality. Naruto stepped closer, examining the wound with concern. It looks like what happens when someone uses corrupted natural energy in my world. We call it senjutsu, a way of drawing power from nature itself. But if it's done wrong, or if the energy is tainted, it corrupts the user as well, Zenari finished, nodding. There are similarities between your senjutsu and our druidic arts. Both tap into the fundamental energies of their respective worlds. So this Selena has basically become a toxic nature battery, Ban summarized. Great. And she specifically targets goddess powers, Elizabeth added quietly. Which means she's a direct threat to me, and possibly to Naruto as well, given the similarities in our abilities. Meliodas's expression hardened, a glimpse of the fearsome warrior beneath his boyish exterior. Then we need to be prepared. We'll head to the Fairy King's forest tomorrow at dawn. King and Diane are already waiting for us there. I'm coming too, Naruto declared, his tone leaving no room for argument. If this is about the connection between our worlds, I need to see it for myself. Of course, Meliodas agreed easily. We wouldn't have it any other way. As the group dispersed to prepare for the journey, Naruto found himself walking alongside Elizabeth through the temple corridors. You're worried, he observed, noting the subtle tension in her shoulders. She nodded, not bothering to deny it. This Selena, if she can truly negate goddess powers, is more dangerous to me than almost any opponent I've faced. My abilities are my only real defense in battle. You won't be facing her alone, Naruto reminded her. I'll be right there with you. Elizabeth smiled, though concern still shadowed her eyes. Thank you. But I worry for you as well. If your powers are connected to goddess abilities as Zenari believes, you might be vulnerable to the same negation. Maybe, Naruto conceded, but I've got a few tricks that don't rely on this new golden energy. And Kurama's power might not be affected at all. Don't make promises you can't keep, Kit, the fox warned. We don't know enough about this enemy yet. Always the optimist, aren't you? Naruto replied silently. Elizabeth stopped walking, turning to face him directly. Just be careful, all right? I've seen too many people hurt trying to protect me. I couldn't bear it if you were added to that list. The genuine concern in her voice caught Naruto off guard. He was used to being the one who worried about others, not the one others worried for. I'll be careful, he promised, more seriously this time. But the same goes for you. No heroics, says the man who confronted 3 holy knights on his first day in our world. Elizabeth teased, her mood lightening. Naruto grinned sheepishly. Do as I say, not as I do. She laughed, the sound bringing warmth to his chest. We're quite the pair, aren't we? Yeah, he agreed softly. I guess we are. Their eyes met, and for a moment, something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement of the strange bond that had formed so quickly. A connection that seemed to transcend the short time they'd known each other. Then the moment passed, and they continued walking, each lost in their own thoughts about what the coming days might bring. The journey to the Fairy King's forest began early the next morning. Hawk Mama carried the Boar Hat Tavern with Meliodas, Elizabeth, Naruto, Ban, and Hawk aboard, while Diane walked alongside. Her giant strides easily keeping pace with the massive pig. Naruto stood on the tavern's porch, watching the landscape of Britannia unfold beneath them. Rolling hills gave way to dense forests, then expansive plains dotted with villages and towns. It was a beautiful world, he had to admit, different from the Fire Country in many ways, yet similar in others. Quite a view, isn't it? Elizabeth said, joining him at the railing. It's amazing, Naruto agreed. Your world is so open. Mine has more hidden villages, more secrets. Britannia has its share of secrets too, Elizabeth replied. Air just hidden in plain sight sometimes. They stood in comfortable silence, watching a flock of strange birds with multicolored plumage fly past the tavern. Can I ask you something? Naruto said after a while. Of course. What's it like? Being a princess, I mean. Elizabeth considered the question thoughtfully. It's complicated. There's the public aspect, the duties, the expectations, constant awareness that your actions reflect on the kingdom. But there's also the personal side. Knowing your family's history shapes the lives of thousands, feeling responsible for people you've never met. Sounds a lot like being Hokage, Naruto observed. The leader of my village, he added at her questioning look. That's right, you mentioned wanting to become Hokage, Elizabeth recalled. Why is that your dream? Naruto leaned against the railing, his gaze distant. It started as a way to be acknowledged. When I was a kid, everyone in the village feared or hated me because of Kurama. I thought if I became Hokage, they'd have to recognize me, respect me. And now, she prompted gently, now, I want to protect them. All of them, even the ones who were cruel to me. He smiled faintly. I want to be the kind of leader who breaks the cycle of hatred, who brings peace not just to my village but to all the shinobi nations. Elizabeth studied him with new understanding. That's a noble goal. What about you? Naruto asked. What does Princess Elizabeth Leones want for her kingdom? Much the same as you, I suppose, she replied. Peace, understanding between different races, an end to the ancient hatreds that have shaped our history. She sighed softly, though recent events have shown how fragile such dreams can be. Before Naruto could respond, Ban emerged from the tavern. A bottle of something amber in one hand. Hate to interrupt the heart-to-heart, he drawled, but Captain wants you both inside. We're approaching the edge of King's territory, and he says there's something you should see. They followed Ban inside, where Meliodas stood before a large map spread across one of the tavern tables. Various markers indicated positions across Britannia, with a large concentration around the capital city of Leones. Hawk's been picking up rumors from the villages we've passed, Meliodas explained without preamble. Varrick's faction, or should I say, Azrael's now, has been gathering forces here, and here. He pointed to 3 locations forming a triangle around what appeared to be a massive forest. They're surrounding the Fairy King's forest, Elizabeth realized. But why? The fairies have remained neutral in human conflicts for centuries. I don't think it's the fairies they're after, Meliodas replied grimly. I think it's the sacred tree itself. The one that connects our worlds. Naruto said, understanding dawning. They're trying to access it. Meliodas nodded. Exactly. Which means we need to reach King and Diane quickly, before Azrael's forces make their move. How much farther to the forest? Naruto asked. We're almost there, Ban replied, taking a casual swig from his bottle. Though getting in is another matter. The barriers around the forest have been strengthened since the last war. Only those King specifically allows can enter now. He's expecting us, Meliodas assured them. But be prepared for a bit of fairy security theater. They're touchy about visitors these days. As if on cue, Hawk Mama let out a loud grunt and began to slow. Through the tavern windows, Naruto could see they were approaching what appeared to be an ordinary forest edge, until he looked more closely. The trees at the boundary seemed to shimmer slightly, as if viewed through heat haze, and their leaves were impossibly vibrant, almost glowing with inner light. Is that it? He asked. It doesn't look that special from here. That's the point, Elizabeth explained. What you're seeing is just the outer barrier. The true Fairy King's forest exists in a sort of pocket dimension, accessible only through specific gateways. They exited the tavern to find Diane already waiting, her massive form kneeling to be closer to their level. Above them, the air rippled like the surface of a disturbed pond. Something's wrong, she said worriedly. King should have come out to meet us by now. Meliodas frowned, his hand falling to his sword hilt. Ban, do you sense anything? The immortal closed his eyes, his head tilting as if listening to something only he could hear. There's fighting inside. Not much, but enough. Azrael's forces may have beaten us here, Elizabeth said, her expression grave. Then we don't have time to wait for an invitation, Naruto declared, stepping forward. Golden energy began to swirl around his hands. How do we get in? Normally, we'd need King's permission, Meliodas replied. But there are other ways. He turned to Diane. Can you still access the forest through your connection to the earth? The giantess nodded. I think so, but I can only bring myself and maybe one other person that way. Take Elizabeth, Meliodas decided. She's the one they're likely after. Ban and I will find another way in. What about me? Naruto asked. Meliodas studied him thoughtfully. Your powers might actually be useful here. The barrier responds to certain energies. Try channeling your golden light into it. Not to break it, but to communicate with it. Naruto raised an eyebrow skeptically but stepped closer to the shimmering air. Closing his eyes, he allowed his new power to flow naturally, forming those intricate symbols that seemed to come instinctively now. The symbol for connection appeared prominently among them, glowing brighter than the others. That's it, Meliodas encouraged. Focus on that one. Naruto concentrated on the symbol, mentally projecting a simple message. We come as friends. We need to enter. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the air before him split like a curtain being drawn aside, revealing a pathway of golden light leading into the forest beyond. Well, that was unexpected, Ban commented, impressed despite himself. The forest recognizes him, Elizabeth realized, her eyes wide. Just as it recognizes the fairy clan. Questions later, Meliodas said briskly. Right now, we need to find King and deal with whatever's happening inside. Hawk, stay with Hawk Mama, Elizabeth instructed the pig, who for once didn't protest being left behind. Be careful in there, he said instead. Something feels off about this whole situation. With Diane carrying Elizabeth in one hand, they passed through the opening Naruto had created. The moment they crossed the threshold, the world changed dramatically. The trees grew impossibly tall, their trunks wider than houses. Their canopies forming a cathedral-like ceiling hundreds of feet above. Flowers the size of carriages bloomed everywhere, their petals luminescent in the dappled sunlight. Streams of crystal clear water flowed around and sometimes through the massive roots, and the air itself seemed charged with vibrant energy. But the beauty was marred by signs of recent conflict. Several trees showed scorch marks, and patches of ground were blackened as if by magical fire. The distant sounds of clashing metal and shouted commands drifted through the forest. "This way," Diane said, setting Elizabeth down gently. "I can feel King's presence." They moved swiftly through the forest, following Diane's lead. As they drew closer to the sounds of battle, Naruto began to make out individual voices, commands being shouted, cries of pain or effort, and one voice rising above the others with unmistakable authority. "Hold the line. Don't let them reach the sacred tree." They emerged into a massive clearing dominated by a tree so enormous it dwarfed even the giants of the forest around it. Its trunk spiraled upward in impossible patterns, branches spreading like a canopy over what seemed to be the entire forest. At its base, a desperate battle was unfolding. A group of small, winged beings, fairies, Naruto presumed, fought alongside what appeared to be an animated stuffed bear against a force of armored knights. At the center of the fairy defenders floated a young man Naruto recognized as King, wielding a spear that constantly changed form as he directed the defense. "King," Diane called, rushing forward with surprising speed for her size. The fairy king turned at her voice, relief flooding his face. "Diane, Captain." Their arrival changed the dynamic of the battle immediately. Meliodas drew his sword and dashed into the fray. Moving so quickly he seemed to teleport between opponents. Ban charged with wild abandon, laughing as Knight's weapons passed harmlessly through his immortal body before he disabled them with powerful strikes. Naruto glanced at Elizabeth. "Stay behind me," he said, golden energy already forming around his hands. "I can fight too," she reminded him, her right eye beginning to glow with orange light. Together, they joined the battle. Naruto created multiple golden clones, using them to flank the knights while he engaged directly. His transformed chakra responded more fluidly now, allowing him to form barriers, enhance his strength and speed, and even create something resembling his Rasengan, though the golden spiraling sphere seemed to purify whatever it touched rather than simply destroying it. Elizabeth focused on support, using her goddess powers to heal injured fairies and create barriers of light that blocked enemy attacks. When forced to engage directly, she used arc blasts of pure light that sent knights flying backward without killing them. Within minutes, the tide had turned. The knights, clearly not expecting such powerful reinforcements, began to retreat toward the edge of the clearing. "Fall back," their leader shouted. "We've confirmed the tree's location." "That's enough for now." As the knights fled, Naruto noticed something odd about their retreat. It was too orderly, too purposeful. This hadn't been a full assault but a probing attack, designed to gather information rather than achieve victory. King floated down to join them, his pair transforming into a smaller form that he tucked behind his back. "Your timing is impeccable as always, Captain." "Looks like we almost came too late," Meliodas replied, sheathing his sword. "What happened?" "They appeared at dawn," King explained, his youthful face grave despite his victory. "They used some kind of magic to bypass our outer defenses, something we've never seen before. They were headed straight for the sacred tree, as if they knew exactly where to find it." "Azrael's doing," Elizabeth said quietly. "He must have knowledge of the forest from ancient times." King nodded. "That's what we feared. These weren't ordinary holy knights. They had strange powers, almost like corrupted nature magic." "Like Selena," Ban observed, examining a wound on his arm that was healing more slowly than it should. "Same kind of burns. You know who's behind this?" King asked hopefully. "Not exactly," Meliodas replied. "But we're piecing it together. That's actually why we came to see you, we need information about the sacred tree and its connection to other worlds." King's expression grew more serious. "Then you should speak with Gloxinia. He's waiting at the heart of the tree." "Gloxinia?" Naruto questioned. "Another fairy. The first fairy king," Diane explained. "He's complicated." They followed King deeper into the clearing, approaching the massive sacred tree. As they drew nearer, Naruto felt a strange resonance with his golden energy, as if the tree itself was calling to something within him. "Do you feel that?" he asked Kurama silently. "Yes," the fox replied, his mental voice unusually subdued. "This tree, it reminds me of the god tree from our world. There's a connection here, something ancient." At the base of the enormous trunk, an opening appeared, not carved, but seemingly formed by the tree itself, its edges living wood that pulsed with inner light. Inside was a spiraling passage leading upward through the heart of the tree. The inner sanctum, King explained. Only fairy kings and those they invite may enter. But the tree itself has accepted all of you, especially you. He looked at Naruto with undisguised curiosity. I've never seen it respond to an outsider that way before. He's not exactly an outsider, Elizabeth said softly. At least, not according to what Zenari told us. They ascended the spiral pathway, which was illuminated by glowing organisms that pulsed with gentle light. The inside of the tree was hollow, forming a vast chamber hundreds of feet high, with smaller openings and passages branching off in all directions. Platform S of living wood created a series of levels connected by bridges of woven vines and roots. At the center of the main chamber, on a platform surrounded by floating orbs of light, waited a figure unlike any Naruto had seen before. He appeared to be a fairy-like king, but much older, with crimson hair and 4 transparent wings. Intricate tattoos covered much of his visible skin, and he carried a staff topped with a flower that continuously bloomed and folded in on itself. Welcome to the heart of the forest, Gloxinia greeted them, his voice melodic yet ancient. I've been expecting you, though not all of you. His gaze settled on Naruto with evident interest. Especially not you, child of another world. Naruto stepped forward, meeting the ancient fairy's gaze steadily. You know what I am. I know what you carry. Gloxinia corrected. A fragment of power that once belonged to the divine tree, what your people call the 10 tails, and what became the 9 Biju of your world. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. How do you know about the 10 tails? Gloxinia gestured, and the orbs of light around him expanded, forming images in the air. A massive tree with 10 tail-like appendages, a woman with horns and a third eye. And a series of 9 distinct creatures, one of which was clearly Kurama. Because the divine tree of your world and the sacred tree of ours were once the same entity, the ancient fairy king explained. Before the worlds were separated, before the sage of 6 paths divided the 10 tails in your realm, before the goddesses and demons waged their war in ours, the Ri was one tree that spanned all realities, planted by beings you call the Otsutsuki and we knew as the Celestials. Azrael, Elizabeth said, he's one of them. Gloxinia nodded gravely. The last of them in our realm. When the worlds were separated to protect them from the Celestials, harvest, Azrael was sealed between dimensions, neither fully in one world nor the other. For millennia he has sought a way to reunite what was divided. To complete the harvest that was denied his kind. And now he's found it, Meliodas concluded. Through Varrock and the Holy Knights. Through power freely given, Gloxinia corrected. The Celestials cannot take by force, it is the one limitation placed upon them. They must be invited, their power accepted willingly. Varrock opened that door when he embraced the power Azrael offered. But why now? Ban asked. If this guy's been stuck between dimensions for thousands of years, why is he making his move at this particular moment? Gloxinia's gaze shifted to Naruto and Elizabeth. Standing side by side. Because of them, the convergence has begun. A vessel of Biju chakra from one world, a vessel of goddess power from another, both existing in the same realm for the first time since the separation. You're saying it's our fault. Naruto frowned. Not fault. Gloxinia shook his head. Catalyst. Your powers resonate with each other, creating harmonic S that weaken the barriers between worlds. Azrael sensed this disturbance and has been working to amplify it. So sending me here was part of his plan, Naruto realized. That shinobi I fought before. Arriving. He must have been working for Azrael somehow. Most likely, Gloxinia agreed. Though even Azrael cannot fully control where or when a dimensional crossing will occur. He could influence events to increase the likelihood. But your specific arrival here, now, was beyond his direct manipulation. Elizabeth stepped closer to the images still floating in the air. These worlds, they're so different, yet connected. How is that possible? Gloxinia waved his staff, and the images shifted, showing 2 trees growing from the same root system but in different directions, their branches neve are touching yet clearly part of the same organism. Long ago, there was only one reality, he explained. When the Celestials threatened to consume everything, the Sage of 6 Paths in one aspect of Th is reality and the Supreme Deity and Demon King in another worked together to split existence itself, creating separate worlds that would develop along different paths. The divine tree was sundered, becoming the God tree in one world and the sacred tree in another. And Azrael wants to undo that separation, Meliodas said, bringing the worlds back together so he can harvest the combined power. Quote, which would destroy both worlds in the process, King added grimly. The forced reunification would create catastrophic instability. Naruto turned to Elizabeth, suddenly understanding the deeper meaning of Zenari's prophecy. That's why our powers responded to each other so strongly. We each carry a fragment of the original whole, you with goddess power, me with Kurama's chakra. Two halves of what was once united. Elizabeth agreed softly. No wonder the convergence centers on us. So how do we stop it? Naruto asked, turning back to Gloxinia. How do we keep Azrael from collapsing our worlds together? The ancient fairy's expression grew solemn. That is the question, isn't it? The separation spell cast by the sage, the supreme deity, and the demon king was meant to be permanent. No one alive today knows how to strengthen it. But Azrael knows how to weaken it, Ban pointed out. Which means there must be a way to push back. Perhaps, Gloxinia conceded. The sacred tree holds me. Mori's beyond my own. Echoes of knowledge from before the separation. I've been searching them since I felt the disturbances begin, but the process is slow. The information is fragmented. Then we need to buy you time, Meliodas decided. Keep Azrael's forces away from the tree while you search for answers. And we need to find Azrael himself, Elizabeth added. If he's working through proxies like Varric and now possibly Selena, we need to identify and stop him directly. Gloxinia nodded in agreement. I will continue my search. In the meantime, there is something I can offer that might help. He extended his staff toward Naruto. Your power is still adapting to our world. I can guide that adaptation, help you harmonize your chakra with the energies of Britannia more efficiently. Naruto glanced at Meliodas, who nodded encouragingly. It's your choice, but Gloxinia's knowledge of natural energy far exceeds even the druids. If anyone can help you master your transformed chakra, it's him. After a moment's consideration, Naruto stepped forward. All right, what do I need to do? Simply allow your power to flow, Gloxinia instructed. Don't direct it, don't shape it. Let it respond to the tree's energy naturally. Naruto closed his eyes, following the fairy's guidance. He let his golden energy emerge without constraint, forming a swirling aura around his body. Immediately, he felt the sacred tree respond, a gentle pulse of power that resonated with his own, creating harmonics that seemed to sing in his very blood. Gloxinia's staff touched his forehead lightly, and the world fell away. Naruto found himself floating in a void filled with interconnected strands of light, golden threads representing his chakra, silver lines for the goddess power that infused this world, and countless other colors forming a complex tapestry. This is the pattern of energies that make up existence, Gloxinia's voice explained, though the fairy himself was nowhere to be seen. Your chakra has been trying to find its place within this pattern since you arrived. I'm simply helping it along. The golden threads began to weave more purposefully through the tapestry, forming new connections, new pathways. Naruto felt his power changing, expanding in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. It was as if barriers within his own energy system were dissolving, allowing for greater flow, greater harmony. When he opened his eyes again, he was back in the heart of the sacred tree, but everything looked different. He could see the flows of energy now, cascading through the tree, through his companions. Through Elizabeth most strongly of all. Her form was outlined in brilliant silver light that pulsed in perfect counterpoint to his own golden aura. Whoa, he breathed, looking down at his hands. The golden energy flowed around them like water, responsive to his slightest thought. When he extended a hand toward a nearby vine, it reached back, growing toward him as if drawn by his will. They harmonized your chakra with the natural energies of our world, Gloxinia explained. You should find your abilities more stable now, more integrated. The sacred tree recognizes you as kin, in a sense, a carrier of its divided essence. It's amazing, Naruto said, watching as symbols formed in the air around him without conscious effort, each representing a different aspect of his power. I can feel everything. Use this gift wisely, Gloxinia cautioned. Greater power brings greater responsibility. And greater risk, Kurama added silently. Our connection to this world has deepened. What happens here now affects us more directly. Naruto nodded, understanding the unspoken warning. As his bond with this world strengthened, so too did the consequences of failure. If Azrael succeeded in collapsing the dimensions, both his home and this new world he was coming to care for would be destroyed. His gaze found Elizabeth, who was watching him with a mixture of wonder and something else. Something that made his heart beat faster. She saw the change in him, recognized its significance. We should return to the surface, King suggested, breaking the moment. If Azrael's forces attacked once, they'll try again. We need to prepare our defenses. As they descended from the heart of the tree, Naruto found himself walking beside Elizabeth, acutely aware of the harmonizing resonance between their energies. How do you feel? She asked quietly. Different, he admitted. Stronger, but also, more connected. To everything, but especially. He hesitated, then finished simply, to you. Elizabeth's cheeks colored slightly, but she didn't look away. I feel it too. It's as if I've known you much longer than a few days. Maybe in some way, we have known each other, Naruto suggested. If our powers come from the same original source, before the worlds were divided. Perhaps, she agreed thoughtfully. There's so much we still don't understand about all of this. They emerge, from the tree to find the clearing now bustling with activity. Fairies flew in all directions, carrying messages, reinforcing defenses, tending to the wounded. Diane was helping to move massive logs into position as makeshift barriers. While Ban and Meliodas conferred over what appeared to be a map of the forest. We've received reports of more knights gathering at the eastern boundary, King informed them as they approached. They seem to be waiting for something, or someone. Selena, most likely, Ban suggested. Based on what Hendrickson told me, she's become Azrael's new favorite since Varrick's failure. Then we need to be ready for her, Meliodas decided. King, can your fairies maintain a perimeter watch? We need advance warning if they try to breach the forest again. King nodded. Already done. Nothing will approach without us knowing. Good. Meliodas turned to the others. We should rest while we can. Something tells me we won't get much chance once the real attack begins. As the group dispersed to various tasks, Naruto found himself drawn back to the sacred tree. His newly heightened senses could feel the power pulsing within it, ancient, patient, yet somehow urgent now. As if the tree itself understood the danger it faced. He placed a hand against the massive trunk, and immediately golden energy flowed from his palm into the bark. To his surprise, the tree responded. A gentle pulse of warm light spreading from the point of contact. It recognizes you, Kurama observed. As it should, given what we now know. Do you remember any of this? Naruto asked silently. You were part of the 10 tails. Which came from the god tree, which was once this tree. My memories don't extend that far back, Kurama replied. The sage created us Biju from the 10 tails chakra. But we didn't inherit its consciousness or oldest memories. Still, there is something familiar here. A resonance I can't quite place. Naruto was about to respond when he felt a presence behind him. He turned to find Elizabeth watching him, her expression thoughtful. Sorry, she said, I didn't mean to interrupt your communion with the tree. You're not interrupting, he assured her. I was just listening, I guess. The tree has a lot to say, even if I can't quite understand all of it. Elizabeth stepped closer, placing her own hand beside his on the trunk. Silver light spread from her palm, intertwining with his golden energy where they met. It's beautiful, she murmured, watching the dance of light. And sad, somehow. You feel that too? Naruto asked, surprised. She nodded. It's like an ancient longing. As if the tree remembers being whole and misses its other half. They stood in silence, their energies mingling against the living wood. Without conscious thought, Naruto's hand shifted slightly until his fingers brushed against Elizabeth's. The contact sent a jolt through him, not unpleasant, but intense, like completing an electrical circuit. Elizabeth felt it too, her eyes widening as she looked at him. Did you? Yeah, he breathed. What was that? Before she could answer, a fairy messenger swooped down from above, breaking the moment. Princess Elizabeth, Sir Meliodas requests your presence immediately. A messenger has arrived from the capital with news of your father. Elizabeth withdrew her hand reluctantly. I'll be right there. To Naruto, she added. We should continue this conversation later. He nodded, watching her hurry after the fairy messenger. The phantom warmth of her hand against his lingered, as did the strange connection they'd shared through the tree. Be careful, Kit, Kurama warned. These feelings you're developing for the princess, they may not be entirely natural. What do you mean? Naruto frowned. Your energies are resonating, harmonizing in ways that affect more than just power, the fox explained. I've seen how you look at her, how your heart rate changes when she's near. Some of that might be the convergence influencing you both. Are you saying what I feel isn't real? Naruto demanded, irritated by the suggestion. I'm saying it's complicated, Kurama replied more gently than was his norm. Just be aware that forces larger than yourselves are at work here. With that uncomfortable thought in mind, Naruto made his way back to the clearing center, where the others had gathered around a travel-worn messenger in the livery of the Leone's royal household. Speaking in riddles for days now, the messenger was saying as Naruto approached. But this morning, he became suddenly lucid and insisted I bring this message directly to you, princess. He handed Elizabeth a sealed parchment bearing the royal crest. Elizabeth broke the seal with trembling fingers, her eyes scanning the contents quickly. Her expression shifted from hope to confusion to concern. What is it? Meliodas asked quietly. It's a prophecy, she replied, her voice unsteady. Father sometimes has visions of the future, it's his unique power as king. This one, she looked up, her gaze finding Naruto. It's about you, I think. Me. Naruto moved closer. What does it say? Elizabeth read from the parchment. He whispered, one comes from beyond the veil, bearing the mark of the beast in the light of creation. Neither fully of our world nor fully apart from it, he stands at the fulcrum of destiny. The goddess reborn shall be his anchor, his light, his heart's true home. Together they will either mend the breaking of worlds or hasten their unmaking. When golden light and silver merge, when fox and angel dance as one, the harvester's power shall be undone, or made absolute. A heavy silence fell over the group as they absorbed the king's words. Well, that's helpfully ambiguous, Ban finally commented. Either you two save everything or destroy everything. No pressure. The whispered one, King mused. That must refer to Naruto, the one whose arrival was sensed rather than seen, whose presence ripples between worlds. And, the goddess reborn, as clearly Elizabeth, Diane added. The reincarnation of the supreme deity's daughter. But what does it mean about mending or unmaking? Elizabeth asked, her brow furrowed in concern. How do we know which outcome our actions will lead to? That's the nature of prophecy, Meliodas said gently. It shows possibilities, not certainties. The future is shaped by the choices we make in the present. Naruto stepped forward, taking the parchment from Elizabeth to read it himself. The words seemed to shimmer on the page, as if alive with hidden meaning. When golden light and silver merge, he read aloud, like what happened when we fought Varrock together. Our powers combined into something new, and defeated him, Elizabeth pointed out. That suggests our merged power works against Israel's purposes, not for them. Unless that was exactly what he wanted, King cautioned. Remember what Gloxinia said, our energies resonating together weaken the barriers between worlds. Naruto handed the prophecy back to Elizabeth, their fingers brushing briefly in the exchange. Even that slight contact created a visible spark where gold met silver. Whatever this means, he said firmly. We'll face it together. I didn't ask to be brought to this world, but I'm here now, and I won't stand by while this harvester threatens everything. Elizabeth nodded, her mismatched eyes resolute. Nor will I. My father's prophecies have guided us through dark times before. We must trust that this one will do the same, even if the path forward isn't clear yet. The messenger cleared his throat nervously. There's one more thing, Your Highness. The king said to tell you that the enemy wears a familiar face. He was most insistent about that part. Meliodas frowned. A familiar face. Could he mean Selena, or someone else in Israel's service? Or Azrael himself, Ban suggested darkly. If he's as ancient as Gloxinia says, he might have appeared in our world before, under different names. Before they could discuss this further, a series of urgent horn blasts echoed through the forest, 3 short bursts followed by 1 long tone. King's expression hardened. That's the alarm. The eastern border is under attack. How many? Meliodas demanded, already drawing his sword. A fairy scout swooped down from above, his wings beating frantically. Hundreds, Sir Meliodas. Holy knights in black armor, led by a woman with silver hair. They're using some kind of acid magic that burns through our defenses. Selena, Ban growled. Sounds like she's got an upgrade since I saw her in the capital. Diane, Ban, with me, Meliodas commanded. We'll engage them directly. King, coordinate your fairies for aerial support. Elizabeth, Naruto, we're coming too, Naruto interrupted. Golden energy already swirling around his hands. If Selena can negate goddess powers, you'll need my help to protect Elizabeth. And if this is part of Israel's plan, we need to understand exactly what we're facing, Elizabeth added. We can't do that hiding in the sacred tree. Meliodas looked like he wanted to argue but nodded instead. Stay close to each other. If things get too dangerous, I want you both to retreat immediately. Understood. They both nodded, though Naruto had no intention of retreating from any fight. From Elizabeth's determined expression, he suspected she felt the same. They moved swiftly through the forest, following King and his fairies toward the eastern border. The sounds of battle grew louder as they approached, clashing metal, shouted commands, and a strange hissing noise unlike anything Naruto had heard before. They emerged from the dense trees onto a ridge overlooking what had once been a beautiful meadow. Now, large patches of ground were blackened and smoking, as if doused with acid. Fairies darted through the air, launching magical attacks at the advancing force of knights in black armor. At their center strode a woman who could only be Selena. She was tall and striking, with silver hair that fell to her waist and armor that seemed to be made of some dark, liquid-like material that rippled with her movements. In one hand, she carried a staff topped with a crystal that pulsed with sickly green light, the same energy Naruto had seen in Varrock's transformed state in Golgius's hammer. That crystal, Elizabeth murmured. It's the source of her negation power. Then that's what we need to destroy, Naruto replied. Meliodas turned to them with a final warning. Be careful, we don't know the full extent of her abilities yet. With that, he leapt from the ridge, Ban and Diane following close behind. King rose into the air, his sacred treasure Chastiful dividing into multiple forms that rained down on the enemy knights. Naruto looked at Elizabeth. Ready, she nodded, her right eye already glowing with orange light. Stay close to me. Together, they descended into the battle. Naruto created several golden clones to clear a path through the knights, while Elizabeth erected barriers of light to protect them from enemy attacks. They moved as a unit, perfectly coordinated despite having fought together only a few times before. Across the battlefield, Selena noticed their approach. Her eyes, an unnatural green that seemed to glow from within, fixed on Elizabeth with predatory intensity. The goddess vessel, she called, her voice carrying unnaturally across the chaos. My master will be pleased when I bring you to him. She raised her staff, and a wave of corrosive green energy surged toward them. Elizabeth thrust her hands forward, creating a barrier of pure light to block the attack. Where the two energies met, her barrier began to sizzle and dissolve. My power negates yours, princess, Selena taunted. Your goddess magic cannot stand against what my master has granted me. Naruto stepped forward, his golden energy forming a second barrier in front of Elizabeth's failing one. To his surprise, his power held against the corrosive wave, though he could feel it straining. Interesting, Selena observed, her head tilting curiously. You must be the anomaly my master sensed, the one from beyond. Your power is different. Yeah, I get that a lot, Naruto replied through gritted teeth, maintaining his barrier as Elizabeth regrouped behind him. And I'm really getting tired of you people trying to kidnap my friend here. Selena laughed, the sound sharp and unpleasant. Friend, is that what you think you are to her? You're a tool, nothing more, a key to unlock the convergence. As is she. Don't listen to her, Elizabeth said softly from behind him. She's trying to divide us. I know, Naruto assured her. To Selena, he called, if we're both so important to your master's plans, why are you attacking us? Doesn't seem very smart. Who said anything about killing you? Selena replied with a cold smile. I merely need to prepare you both. The convergence requires specific conditions. She made a sharp gesture with her free hand, and the knights around her suddenly changed formation, creating a circle with her at its center. They raised their weapons in unison, and green energy began to flow from each of them toward Selena's staff. That can't be good, Naruto muttered. The crystal atop Selena's staff pulsed brighter with each contribution, growing until it illuminated the entire battlefield with its sickly light. The air itself seemed to warp around her, reality bending in unnatural ways. Dimensional erosion, she intoned, her voice now layered with otherworldly harmonics. By my master's will, let the veil be thinned. The crystal shattered, releasing a shockwave of energy that rippled outward in all directions. Naruto reinforced his barrier with everything he had. But the wave passed through it as if it wasn't there, through him, through Elizabeth, through everyone on the battlefield. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a sound like tearing fabric, the sky above them split open, revealing a swirling vortex of darkness shot through with flashes of familiar light. As that, Elizabeth gasped. Konoha, Naruto confirmed, staring in shock at glimpses of his home world visible through the rift. She's opening a portal between our worlds. Across the battlefield, Meliodas had engaged Selena directly, his sword clashing against her staff in a shower of sparks. Ban and Diane were cutting through the knights, trying to reach the center of the formation, while King's aerial attacks provided cover from above. We need to close that rift, Elizabeth said urgently. If it grows any larger, it could destabilize both worlds. Naruto nodded, his mind racing. Maybe we can use the same power we used against Varrock, our energies combined. It's worth trying, Elizabeth agreed. They positioned themselves directly beneath the growing rift, hands clasped tightly together. Gold and silver light began to spiral around their joined fingers, forming the same pearlescent energy they had created before. Focus on sealing, on closure, Naruto suggested, drawing on his knowledge of Fuinjutsu, sealing techniques from his world. Elizabeth nodded, her concentration absolute as she channeled her goddess power into their merged energy. The pearlescent light between their hands grew, forming complex patterns that resembled both the sacred art of Britannia and the sealing formulas of the shinobi world. Now, Naruto called. They thrust their joined hands upward, sending a beam of their combined power into the heart of the rift. The pearlescent light expanded upon contact, spreading along the edges of the tear-like liquid light. Slowly, the rift began to shrink, the edges drawing together as their power forced reality to mend itself. As they maintained the flow of energy, something unexpected happened. Images began to flash through Naruto's mind, memories that weren't his own. A grand castle, a battlefield littered with the bodies of goddesses and demons. A young woman with silver hair and orange eyes lying dead in the arms of a blonde man who looked strikingly like Meliodas. Elizabeth's memories, Kurama realized. From her past lives, your connected powers are sharing more than just energy. Beside him, Elizabeth gasped, her eyes wide. I can see, Konoha, the academy, Ichiraku Ramen, your apartment with the plants in the window. She turned to him in wonder. I can see your memories. Despite the danger of their situation, Naruto found himself smiling. And I can see yours. You've lived many lives, haven't you? 3,000 years of reincarnation, she confirmed, her voice soft with wonder. But never before have I remembered them so clearly. Their momentary distraction cost them. The rift, nearly closed, suddenly pulsed with renewed energy. From within the swirling darkness, a figure began to emerge, humanoid but wrong somehow, its proportions slightly off, its movements too fluid to be natural. He's coming through, Elizabeth realized with horror. Azrael is using our power to cross over. Naruto immediately tried to break their connection, to stop the flow of energy, but found he couldn't. Their hands remained fused together, the pearlescent light now a chain binding them rather than a tool under their control. I can't let go, he said, panic edging into his voice. Can you? Elizabeth shook her head, her expression mirroring his alarm. Our powers are locked together. He's using us as a conduit. Across the battlefield, Meliodas seemed to realize what was happening. With a roar of fury, he disengaged from Selena and charged toward the rift, his sword trailing darkness. Naruto, Elizabeth, break the connection, he shouted. We can't, Elizabeth called back. It's like we're trapped. Meliodas leapt into the air, his sword raised to strike at the figure emerging from the rift. But before he could reach it, Selena appeared between them, her staff blocking his attack. "You're too late, dragon's sin," she laughed. "My master comes, and with him, the new age begins." The figure in the rift continued to emerge, one arm extending toward Naruto and Elizabeth, fingers elongated into claw-like appendages. Its face was still obscured by the swirling energies, but Naruto could feel its hunger, its anticipation, emotions so alien and vast they threatened to overwhelm his senses. "We need to disrupt the harmony between your powers," Kurama advised urgently. "Create discord instead of resonance." "How?" Naruto demanded. "My chakra," the fox replied. "It's different from your transformed energy, rawer, wilder. If I feed it directly into your connection with the princess, it might break the binding," Naruto realized. "Do it." Red chakra began to seep through his golden aura, the familiar burning energy of the Nine Tails mixing with his transformed power. Elizabeth gasped as it reached their joined hands, her silver light flickering as it encountered this new, discordant force. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice strained. "Trust me," Naruto replied. "It's Kurama's chakra. It should disrupt whatever Azrael is doing to us." The red energy spread further, creating ripples of instability in their merged power. The pearlescent light between them began to fragment, shooting off in erratic bursts rather than the smooth flow of before. Above them, the emerging figure recoiled, a sound like grinding glass emanating from within the rift. The arm withdrew, the shadowy form retreating back into the darkness. "No!" Selena screamed, seeing her master's advance halted. "You fools! Do you know what you're rejecting?" With a final surge of Kurama's chakra, the connection between Naruto and Elizabeth shattered completely. They fell away from each other, both dropping to their knees in exhaustion. The rift above them, no longer fed by their merged power, began to collapse in on itself. The backlash of energy created a shockwave that rippled across the battlefield, knocking knights and fairies alike to the ground. Only Selena remained standing, her face contorted with rage as she watched her master's passage thwarted. "This isn't over," she snarled, her staff glowing with renewed power. "My master cannot be denied so easily." She raised the staff high, preparing to strike, when a massive hammer of darkness slammed into her from the side. Meliodas stood there, his power fully unleashed, demonic energy swirling around his form. "Your master will have to wait," he said coldly. "You're dealing with me now." Selena hissed in pain and fury, her armor cracked from the impact. With a gesture, she summoned a portal of her own, smaller than the rift, but large enough for a person to pass through. "Another time, dragon's sin," she spat. "My master's patience is not endless, nor is mine." Before Meliodas could reach her, she stepped through the portal, which snapped closed behind her. Around the battlefield, seeing their leader flee, the remaining knights began to retreat as well, many dropping their weapons in their haste to escape. Naruto crawled to Elizabeth's side, concern overriding his own exhaustion. "Are you okay?" She nodded weakly, her silver hair tangled around her pale face. "Just drained." That was. She looked at him with wonder still in her eyes. "I saw your life, Naruto. I felt what you felt. Your loneliness as a child, your determination to be acknowledged, your unwavering loyalty to your friends. And I saw yours," he replied softly. 3,000 years of loving the same person, dying again and again, only to be reborn with no memory of what came before. He hesitated, then added, "Your love for Meliodas, it's incredible. To find each other lifetime after lifetime." A shadow of something, pain, regret, crossed Elizabeth's face. "Yes, our curse has defined us both for so long." "Curse?" Naruto repeated, confused. "It's complicated," she said, looking away. "And not important right now. What matters is that we stopped Azrael from crossing over completely." Meliodas joined them, kneeling beside Elizabeth with obvious concern. "Are you hurt?" "No," she assured him. "Just tired." Naruto broke the connection before Azrael could use us to fully emerge. Meliodas turned to Naruto, gratitude evident in his green eyes. Quick thinking. Using the Nine Tails chakra to disrupt the harmony was brilliant. "It was Kurama's idea, not mine," Naruto admitted. "He sensed what was happening before I did. Then I owe thanks to both of you, Meliodas said sincerely. If Azrael had managed to cross over completely, why didn't he? Ban asked, joining them with King and Diane. Seemed like he was halfway through before Red here intervened. I don't think he could, King suggested thoughtfully. From what Gloxinia told us, Azrael is sealed between dimensions. He might be able to project parts of himself through temporarily, but actually crossing over would require breaking the seal completely. Why? CH is what the convergence is meant to do, Elizabeth realized. He's not just trying to collapse our worlds together, he's trying to free himself from his prison. And he nearly succeeded, Diane added worriedly. Using your combined power is a key. Naruto helped Elizabeth to her feet, steadying her when she swayed slightly. At least now we know what we're up against. And that our merged power can be both a weapon against him and a tool he can use. Which means we need to be careful how and when we combine our abilities, Elizabeth concluded. It's too dangerous to use casually. As they aid their way back toward the sacred tree, Naruto found himself deep in thought. The memories he had glimpsed from Elizabeth's past lives haunted him, especially her relationship with Meliodas, the love that had transcended death and rebirth for millennia. You're troubled, Kurama observed silently. I saw everything, Kurama, Naruto replied. How she's loved Meliodas for 3,000 years. How they find each other in every lifetime. And this bothers you because I'm starting to have feelings for her, Naruto admitted, the thought crystallizing for the first time. And it's hopeless. How can I compete with 3,000 years of history? Perhaps you're not meant to compete, Kurama suggested. The prophecy called her your heart's true home, not his. And did you not how she reacted when you mentioned her feelings for Meliodas? Naruto frowned, recalling the shadow that had crossed Elizabeth's face. She seemed sad, almost regretful. Exactly, the fox said. There's more to her story than you've seen. Don't make assumptions based on fragments of memory. Still, as they reached the clearing around the sacred tree, Naruto couldn't help but watch the easy familiarity between Elizabeth and Meliodas, the way she leaned on him when tired, the gentle concern in his eyes as he helped her sit beneath the tree's spreading branches. They had a history he could never share, a bond forged through countless lifetimes. You're brooding, Ban commented, dropping down beside Naruto with his customary lack of ceremony. Bad habit. Trust me, I know. I'm not brooding, Naruto protested. Just thinking. Ban replied skeptically. And those thoughts wouldn't happen to involve a certain silver-haired princess and her complicated relationship with our captain, would they? Naruto stared at him in surprise. How did you? Please, Ban scoffed. I've got eyes. And contrary to popular belief, I'm not completely self-absorbed. His expression softened slightly. Look, kid, Elizabeth and the captain. It's not as simple as you think. 3,000 years of reincarnation and undying love seems pretty straightforward to me, Naruto replied, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. Ban took a swig from a bottle that had appeared seemingly from nowhere. Yeah, that's what everyone thinks. But here's the thing. Curses change people. And when he supreme deity cursed Elizabeth to die every 3 days after regaining her memories, and the Demon King cursed Meliodas to immortality so he'd watch it happen again and again, well, let's just say that kind of cycle leaves marks. Wait, what? Naruto sat up straighter. Elizabeth dies every time she remembers her past lives. Ban nodded grimly. That was the curse. For 3,000 years, they've been trapped in that pattern. She's reborn, they find each other, she starts to remember, she dies. Rinse and repeat. He took another drink. We managed to break the curses recently, killed the Supreme Deity and the Demon King to do it. But 3,000 years of conditioning doesn't just disappear overnight. Naruto looked across the clearing to where Elizabeth sat with Meliodas, seeing their interaction in a new light. So she's free now. She can remember without dying. Yeah, but old habits die hard, Ban shrugged. The captain still hovers over her like she might disappear any second. And Elizabeth, well, she's spent 3,000 years defining herself by that relationship. It's a lot to unpack. Why are you telling me this? Naruto asked, though he already suspected the answer. Ban's lazy grin returned. Because I like you, kid. You remind me of me, back before I got all cynical and immortal. And because the princess looks at you differently than she looks at anyone else, even the captain. I've known her a long time, through several incarnations. This is new." With that cryptic observation, Ban rose and sauntered away, leaving Naruto to contemplate his words. Across the clearing, as if sensing his gaze, Elizabeth looked up and met his eyes. Even at this distance, he could see the faint blush that colored her cheeks before she quickly looked away. "Maybe there's hope after all," Kurama commented. "Maybe," Naruto agreed cautiously. "But we've got bigger problems right now than my feelings." As night fell over the Fairy King's forest, the group gathered around a council fire to discuss their next steps. Gloxinia had joined them, his ancient eyes troubled as he listened to their account of the battle and Azrael's attempted crossing. "The situation is worse than I feared," the first Fairy King said when they had finished. "Azrael was able to use your combined power as a conduit because the resonance between you mimics the original unity of the divine tree. In a sense, when your energies merge, you temporarily reconstruct a fragment of what was sundered. So we can't use our combined power against him," Elizabeth concluded. "It's too dangerous." "Not necessarily," Gloxinia replied thoughtfully. "The key lies in how you merge your energies. When you joined hands directly, with no direction or purpose beyond combination itself, you created an open channel, one Azrael could exploit. But if you were to merge your powers with specific intent, with a seal or pattern designed to oppose his nature, we might be able to use it as a weapon against him instead," Naruto finished. Understanding dawning, like how specific hand signs shape chakra for different jutsu in my world. Gloxinia nodded. "Precisely. The sacred tree has been showing me fragments of ancient knowledge, sealing patterns used during the original separation of worlds. If I could teach these to you both, then we'd have a way to fight back without playing into Azrael's hands," Elizabeth said, hope kindling in her voice. "It would require time to master," the ancient fairy cautioned. "These are complex patterns, drawing on the deepest principles of both your power systems." "We'll learn whatever we need to," Naruto declared firmly. "Just show us where to start." Meliodas, who had been unusually quiet during this discussion, finally spoke. "That's for tomorrow. Tonight, we need to rest and recover. Selena's attack was just the beginning. Azrael won't give up after coming so close." "The captain's right," King agreed. "My fairies report increased activity at all borders of the forest. They're regrouping, probably planning their next move. I've sent a message to Merlin," Diane added. "If anyone can help us understand the science behind what's happening, it's her." "Then it's settled," Meliodas concluded. "Tomorrow, Naruto and Elizabeth begin training with Gloxinia while the rest of us strengthen our defenses and gather whatever allies we can. Ban, I want you to find Escanor. We'll need his strength if Azrael makes another attempt." As the group dispersed for the night, Gloxinia approached Naruto and Elizabeth. "Meet me at the heart chamber at dawn," he instructed. "Bring clear minds and open hearts. The patterns I will teach you require both intellectual understanding and emotional resonance." When the ancient fairy had departed, Elizabeth turned to Naruto. "We should try to get some sleep. Tomorrow will be demanding." Naruto nodded, though sleep seemed impossible with his mind racing as it was. "Elizabeth, about what I saw when our powers connected." She hesitated, then said softly, "Perhaps we should discuss that somewhere more private." They walked together away from the main camp, finding a quiet glade illuminated by luminescent flow. Words that cast a gentle blue light over everything. Firefly-like beings drifted through the air, adding pinpoints of gold to the serene tableau. "It's beautiful," Naruto said, momentarily distracted by the peaceful setting. "The fairies called this the Dreaming Glade," Elizabeth explained. "It's said to reveal one's true heart's desire if you spend the night here." "Dangerous place, then," Naruto commented with a small smile. Elizabeth returned his smile, though something wistful lingered in her expression. "Perhaps. What did you want to discuss, Naruto?" He took a deep breath, uncertain how to broach the subject. "When our powers connected, I saw your past lives. Your relationship with Meliodas, the curse." Her smile faded, replaced by a solemnity that seemed to age her. "Yes, 3,000 years of the same pattern. A love story that became a tragedy, then a prison. Ban told me the curses were broken," Naruto said carefully. That you're free now. We are, she confirmed. After so long, we finally defeated both the Supreme Deity and the Demon King. The curses are lifted. I can remember everything now without fear of death, and Meliodas is no longer immortal. That's good, right? Naruto asked, noting the complexity in her tone. Elizabeth sighed, sitting gracefully on a mossy stone. Yes and no. Freedom after 3,000 years of conditioning, it's disorienting. For so long, my existence, every incarnation of me, was defined by finding Meliodas, loving him, dying for that love. Now that the pattern is broken, she trailed off, searching for words. You're not sure who you are outside of it, Naruto suggested gently. Her eyes widened in surprise. Yes, exactly. How did you know? I've had my own identity struggles, he admitted, sitting beside her. Growing up as Kurama's vessel, being hated for something I didn't choose, then later discovering my heritage, my connections to prophecies and destinies I never asked for. I understand what it's like to question your place in the world. Elizabeth studied him with newfound appreciation. You do understand, don't you? Better than most. She looked away, toward the drifting lights. I love Meliodas. I always will. He's been the constant through all my lives, the one who remembered when I couldn't. But now that I remember everything, now that we're both free, things feel different, Naruto finished when she hesitated. Yes, she admitted softly. We've been so focused on breaking the curses that we never really thought about what would come after. Who we would be to each other without that desperate cycle driving us. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the gentle light playing across their features. And then you arrived, Elizabeth continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Someone entirely new, someone connected to me in ways I don't fully understand, yet who sees me as just. Elizabeth, not as the goddess reborn or the cursed princess or Meliodas's eternal love. Just me. Naruto's heart quickened at her words. As that, good, she turned to him, a small smile lifting the corners of her mouth. It's refreshing. Confusing, certainly, but refreshing. Her smile faltered slightly. But I saw your memories too, Naruto. I saw the girl with pink hair, Sakura. Your feelings for her, Sakura, Naruto said, the name bringing a complicated mix of emotions. Yeah, I had feelings for her for a long time. But she's always loved Sasuke, even when he didn't deserve it. Before I came here, I'd started to accept that some things aren't meant to be. And now, Elizabeth asked quietly. Naruto looked at her directly, finding courage in the gentle acceptance of her gaze. Now I'm here, in a world I never knew existed, sitting next to someone who makes me feel something I can't quite name yet. Something new. The blush that colored her cheeks was visible even in the blue-tinted light. I feel it too, she admitted. And it terrifies me. 3,000 years of loving the same person. And then in a matter of days. Hey, Naruto said gently, we don't have to define anything right now. We're in the middle of trying to save two worlds from a dimension-eating monster. Maybe we can just see where this goes. No pressure, no expectations. Elizabeth's laugh was soft but genuine. Put that way, it sounds so simple. I'm good at simplifying things, Naruto replied with a grin. It's a talent. She reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing against his hand where it rested on the moss between them. Unlike before, there was no overwhelming surge of power. Just a gentle warmth where their skin touched. Whatever this is, she said softly, I'm glad you're here, Naruto Uzumaki. Me too, he replied, turning his hand to properly hold hers. Even with the world-ending danger and dimensional rifts. They remained that way for a time, talking quietly about lighter things, favorite foods, ramen for him, sweet berry tarts for her, childhood adventures, most of his involved pranks. Hers palace escapes, dreams for the future beyond their current destinies. It was normal, human connection, something both of them had too little of in their extraordinary lives. Eventually, Elizabeth stifled a yawn, the events of the day catching up with her. We should get some rest. Gloxinia will be expecting us at dawn. You're right, Naruto agreed, reluctantly releasing her hand as they stood. Though I'm not sure how much sleep I'll get with everything on my mind. Try, she encouraged. Tomorrow will be challenging enough without exhaustion adding to it. As they walked back toward the camp, Naruto found himself hyper-aware of her presence beside him. The gentle sway of her silver hair, the rhythm of her breathing, the occasional brush of her arm against his. Whatever was developing between them was fragile, complicated by prophecies and past lives and interdimensional threats, but in this moment, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. When they reached the clearing where sleeping quarters had been arranged, they paused, neither quite ready to part. "Good night, Naruto," Elizabeth said softly. "Good night, Elizabeth," he replied. On impulse, he leaned forward and placed a gentle kiss on her cheek, brief, chaste, but unmistakably affectionate. Her eyes widened in surprise, then softened with something that made his heart skip. "Sleep well," she whispered before turning toward her tent. Naruto watched her go, a mix of emotions swirling within him: hope, uncertainty, determination, and something deeper he wasn't quite ready to name. Whatever tomorrow brought, whatever challenges Azrael and his servants presented, he knew with absolute certainty that he would protect her, protect this world that was becoming increasingly precious to him. "You're in deep, Kit," Kurama observed, though without his usual sarcasm. "Yeah," Naruto agreed silently. "I think I am." Dawn arrived with gentle golden light filtering through the canopy of the Fairy King's forest. Naruto, who had managed only a few hours of restless sleep, made his way to the sacred tree where Gloxinia had instructed them to meet. Elizabeth was already there, looking surprisingly refreshed despite the previous day's ordeals. "Good morning," she greeted him with a smile that brought warmth to his chest. "Did you sleep well?" "Not really," he admitted. "Too much on my mind." "The coming training, or our conversation last night?" she asked, a hint of uncertainty in her voice. "Both," Naruto replied honestly. "No regrets, though, about either." Her smile widened, relief evident in her eyes. "Good, neither do I." Before they could say more, Gloxinia emerged from the trunk of the sacred tree, looking even more ancient in the morning light. "You are both prompt. Good. We have much to cover. And time is precious." He led them inside the tree, up the spiraling pathway to the heart chamber they had visited before. This time, the chamber was arranged different. Intricate patterns had been etched into the living wood of the floor, forming a complex mandala that seemed to shift and change as they looked at it. "These are the sealing patterns of harmony," Gloxinia explained. "Ancient formulas used during the original separation of worlds to ensure balance was maintained even as unity was broken." Naruto studied the patterns with interest, recognizing elements that resembled both the sealing jutsu of his world and the sacred arts of Britannia. "They're beautiful," he commented. "And complicated." "The complexity is necessary," Gloxinia replied. "Simple patterns cannot contain or direct power of the magnitude you two generate when combined." He gestured for them to sit on opposite sides of the mandala. "Today, we begin with understanding, not action. You must learn the theory before attempting the practice." For the next several hours, the ancient fairy guided them through the principles underlying the sealing patterns. He explained how certain configurations channeled energy in specific ways, how intent and emotion could strengthen or weaken particular aspects, how the very geometry of the designs reflected fundamental truths about the nature of power in both their worlds. To Naruto's surprise, he found himself grasping the concepts more easily than expected. His experience with shadow clones and Rasengan had given him an intuitive understanding of chakra manipulation that translated well to these new patterns. Elizabeth, too, showed remarkable aptitude, her goddess powers responding readily to the ancient formulas. When Gloxinia had them practice drawing the simplest patterns in the air with their respective energies, her silver light formed the symbols with precise elegance. "You both learn quickly," Gloxinia observed with approval. "Now, let us attempt something more challenging. A pattern of mutual containment, allowing your powers to merge without creating an open channel that Azrael could exploit." He demonstrated the pattern, a complex spiral surrounded by interlocking triangles and circles, each element flowing into the next in perfect harmony. "This design creates a closed circuit. Energy flows between you but remains contained within the pattern itself, allowing neither intrusion nor leakage." Naruto and Elizabeth practiced separately at first, each creating their portion of the pattern with their individual powers. When Gloxinia finally deemed them ready to try it together, a nervous tension filled the chamber. "Remember," the ancient fairy cautioned, Focus on the pattern, not on each other. Let your energies follow the design, not your emotions. They stood facing each other across the mandala, their eyes meeting briefly before focusing on the task at hand. Naruto extended his hands, palms outward, golden energy flowing from his fingertips to form his half of the pattern. Elizabeth mirrored his movements, her silver light creating the complementary design. As their energies approached the center point where they would connect, Naruto felt the now familiar resonance building between them, the pull that seemed to draw their powers together like magnets. This time, however, the sealing pattern provided structure, directing that resonance along specific pathways rather than allowing it to merge chaotically. When gold met silver at the center of the design, there was no overwhelming surge, no loss of control. Instead, their energies flowed smoothly into the pattern, filling it with pearlescent light that remained contained within the boundaries they had created. Excellent, Gloxinia said softly, watching the completed pattern rotate gently between them. Now, gradually increase the power, but maintain the structure. Naruto fed more of his golden chakra into the design, feeling Ella's Beth do the same with her goddess power. The pattern brightened, spinning faster, but remained stable, a closed system that allowed their energies to combine without creating the vulnerability Azrael had exploited before. I can feel you, Elizabeth said wonderingly, but it's different from before. More controlled. Yeah, Naruto agreed. It's like we're connected, but through a filter. That is precisely the point. Gloxinia confirmed. The pattern allows communion without complete merger, interaction without exposure. They maintained the sealed combination for several minutes before Gloxinia instructed them to gradually withdraw their energies. The pattern faded slowly, gold and silver separating cleanly without the jarring break of their previous experience. A promising beginning, the Fairy King said. But this is merely the simplest of the patterns you must master. The truly powerful seals, those capable of opposing Azrael directly, are far more complex. We'll learn them, Naruto declared confidently. No matter how complex they are. Elizabeth nodded in agreement. Whatever it takes. Gloxinia studied them both, his ancient eyes seeing more than they revealed. Your determination is admirable, but remember, these patterns require more than technical mastery. They demand harmony of purpose, alignment of will. Any discord between you will manifest as instability in the seal. Is that why you had us discuss our situation last night? Elizabeth asked perceptively. To clear the air between us. A small smile curved the fairy's lips. The dreaming blade has served that purpose for many before you. Clarity of heart leads to clarity of power. Naruto exchanged a glance with Elizabeth, understanding dawning. You set us up, he accused, though without real anger. I merely provided an opportunity. Gloxinia replied serenely. What transpired there was entirely your own doing. Before either could respond, a commotion outside the tree interrupted their session. The sounds of urgent voices and running feet filtered up through the trunk. Something's happening, Naruto said, already moving toward the exit. We should check it out. They descended rapid L.Y. to find the clearing in organized chaos. Fairies flew in all directions, carrying messages and supplies, while Ban and Diane conferred urgently with King near the edge of the forest. What's going on? Elizabeth asked as they approached. Message from Gilthunder, Ban replied grimly. Varix, no, Azrael's forces are moving on the capital in force. The king has been taken to safety by knights loyal to the new regime. My father, Elizabeth gasped. They're using him as a hostage. That's not all, King added. Merlin's finally made contact. She says there's unusual magical activity at Acard sites all across Britannia. Standing stones, ancient temples, places of power. They're being corrupted somehow, their energy redirected. The ley lines, Gloxinia realized, joining them. Azrael is seizing control of Britannia's magical network, one node at a time. To what end? Naruto asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. To create a network of power that mirrors the one in your world. The ancient fairy explained. If he can synchronize the energy flows of both realities, he can create a stable bridge between them, one that doesn't require your combined power as a key. Which means he could cross over completely, Meliodas concluded, appearing suddenly beside them. Or pull our worlds together without needing Naruto and Elizabeth at all. We can't let that happen, Elizabeth declared. We need to stop him, starting with freeing my father and retaking the capital. Agreed, Meliodas nodded. But we need to be smart about this. Charging in blindly is exactly what Azrael wants. He's practically daring us to come to him. So we give him what he wants, Ban suggested with his characteristic recklessness. But on our terms. What do you mean? King asked skeptically. Ban's lazy grin held a predatory edge. We let him think we're falling for his trap. Meliodas, Diane, King, and I make a big, flashy assault on the capital. Draw all the attention, all the forces. Meanwhile, Elizabeth, Naruto, and maybe Gloxinia slip in the back way, find the king, and disrupt whatever magical nonsense Azrael's cooking up. It could work, Meliodas mused, considering the plan. Especially if we time it right. Escanor will be at his peak strength at noon, if we attack then, with him leading the charge. No one can stand against the lion's sin at high noon, Diane agreed enthusiastically. Not even Azrael's enhanced knights. What about Selena? Elizabeth asked. Her ability to negate goddess powers makes her especially dangerous to me. That's where Naruto comes in, Meliodas replied. His power seems resistant to her negation effect, at least partially. He'll be your shield while you locate and free your father. Naruto nodded firmly. I won't let anything happen to her. Then it's settled, Meliodas decided. We leave for Leones at dawn tomorrow. Today, we prepare weapons, strategies, and most importantly, Naruto and Elizabeth continue their training with Gloxinia. If they encounter Azrael directly, they'll need every advantage they can get. As the group dispersed to their various preparations, Naruto and Elizabeth returned to the Heart Chamber with Gloxinia. The remainder of the day passed in intense study and practice, the ancient fairy pushing them to master increasingly complex sealing patterns. By evening, they could create and maintain several different configurations, each designed for specific purposes: defense, attack, purification, and containment. Exhausted but satisfied with their progress, they emerged from the sacred tree to find the camp preparing for departure. Weapons were being sharpened, provisions packed, strategies discussed in low, serious tones around cook fires. You should rest, Gloxinia advised them. Tomorrow we'll test everything you've learned. Too tired to argue, they made their way to their respective tents. Before they parted, Elizabeth touched Naruto's arm gently. Thank you, she said simply. For what? He asked, confused. For being here, for learning all of this so quickly. For, she hesitated, then finished softly, for seeing me as just Elizabeth. Naruto smiled, covering her hand with his own. Always. Their eyes held for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then, with a final squeeze of his hand, she turned and disappeared into her tent. Sleep came more easily than Naruto had expected, his body demanding rest after the mental and magical exertion of the day. His dreams were vivid, images of Konoha intermingled with scenes from Britannia, faces of friends Rom, both worlds blending and separating in kaleidoscopic patterns. Throughout it all ran a constant thread of silver and gold, weaving together in increasingly complex designs. He woke before dawn, alert despite the early hour. Outside his tent, the camp was already stirring, preparations for departure in full swing. Meliodas stood at the center, issuing final instructions to various groups. Ah, you're up, the Sin captain noted as Naruto approached. Good, we move out in 30 minutes. Hawk Mama will carry those of us heading for the main assault. You, Elizabeth, and Gloxinia will take a D.F.F. errant route, through the old tunnels that connect the Fairy King's forest to the catacombs beneath Leone's castle. There are tunnels? Naruto asked, surprised. Ancient ones, Meliodas confirmed. Dating back to before the Holy War. Few know of their existence, which gives us an advantage. Gloxinia can guide you. He helped create them, after all. As they spoke, Elizabeth emerged from her tent, rest not in her usual attire but in a more practical outfit suited for combat. Close-fitting trousers, a short tunic cinched at the waist, and sturdy boots. Her silver hair was pulled back in a simple braid, emphasizing the determination in her mismatched eyes. You look ready for battle, Naruto observed appreciatively. I'm done being just someone to protect, she replied firmly. This is my kingdom, my father in danger. I intend to fight for them. That's the spirit, Ban commented, joining them with a casual salute. Just remember the plan. You three are the infiltration team, not the distraction. Leave the flashy stuff to us professionals, says the man who once challenged an entire Holy Knight battalion while drunk, King remarked dryly as he floated past. And Juan, Ban added with a grin. The banter continued as final preparations were made. Weapons were distributed, routes confirmed, contingency plans established. Through it all, Naruto noticed the easy camaraderie of the Sin. The way they functioned as a seamless unit despite their vastly different personalities and powers. It reminded him of his own team back in Konoha, of the bonds forged through shared battles and hardships. As the sun began to peek over the horizon, casting long shadows through the ancient trees, Gloxinia approached them. He carried 3 small crystals, each glowing with inner light. Communication stones, he explained, handing one to Naruto, one to Elizabeth, and keeping the third. They will allow us to coordinate with Meliodas and the others once we're inside the castle. Are we ready to move out? Meliodas asked, joining them. Gloxinia nodded. The eastern tunnel entrance is clear. We can depart whenever you give the word. Then let's not waste daylight, Meliodas decided. To the group at large, he called, move out. Remember the plan. Main force creates a diversion at the western gate while the infiltration team enters through the catacombs. Our primary objectives are to locate and secure King Bartra, disrupt Azrael's magical network, and if possible, capture or eliminate Selena. What about Azrael himself? Diane asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. Meliodas's expression hardened. If he manifests physically, priority shifts to containment. Under no circumstances is anyone to engage him alone. We coordinate, we adapt, we survive. Clear. Nods of agreement circled the group, the gravity of their mission settling over them like a mantle. Good hunting, Ban said, clapping Naruto on the shoulder. Try not to die, it's overrated. Speak for yourself, Naruto replied with a grin. I'm planning to stick around. With final farewells exchanged, the group split into their assigned teams. Hawk Mama carried Meliodas, Ban, King, Diane, and a tall, powerfully built man Naruto had been introduced to as Escanor away toward the western edge of the forest. Meanwhile, Naruto, Elizabeth, and Gloxinia headed east, deeper into the ancient woods. The tunnel NCE is hidden within a grove of memory trees, Gloxinia explained as they walked. Trees so old they remember the time before the separation of worlds. Will they let us pass? Elizabeth asked. They will recognize you both, the ancient fairy assured them. Your energies carry echoes of the original whole. To the oldest beings in this forest, you represent a nostalgia for what once was. They traveled in relative silence after that, each lost in their own thoughts as they prepared mentally for what lay ahead. Naruto found himself unusually calm, the nervousness he might have expected before such a critical mission absent. Perhaps it was the training with Gloxinia, or simply the clarity that came with having a defined purpose. After about an hour's journey, they reached a secluded grove. Here massive trees grew in a perfect circle. Unlike the other trees in the forest, these had bark of silver white and leaves that shimmered with an inner light. At the center of the circle stood a single stone, unremarkable except for the faint runes carved into its surface. The gateway stone, Gloxinia said, approaching it reverently. Last used 3,000 years ago, during the final days of the Holy War. He placed his hand upon the stone, and the runes began to glow with gentle blue light. The ground trembled slightly, and the stone slowly sank into the earth, revealing a spiraling staircase descending into darkness. The tunnels were created as escape routes during the war, Gloxinia explained as he produced a small glowing orb to light their way. They connect all the major strongholds of the allied races, the Fairy King's Forest, the Giant's Nest, the capital of Leones, and several other locations now lost to time. They descended the staircase, which seemed to go on far longer than should have been possible given their location. The air grew cooler but not stale. Somehow, these ancient passages remained well ventilated despite their depth and age. The walls are made of living stone, Elizabeth observed, running her fingers along the smooth surface. I can feel magic flowing through them. Correct, Gloxinia nodded approvingly. The tunnels are essentially veins running through Britannia's magical circulatory system, following the natural ley lines that connect places of power. Which means Azrael might be aware of them, Naruto realized. If he's tapping into the ley lines as you suggested. Possible, but unlikely, the Fairy King replied. These particular passages exist slightly out of phase with the main network, a precaution taken specifically to prevent enemies from detecting them. Unless Azrael has already completely mastered Britannia's magical geography, they should remain hidden from his awareness. The journey through the tunnels was long and largely uneventful. Occasionally, they passed side passages or chambers carved into the living stone, some containing ancient artifacts or murals depicting events from Britannia's history. Gloxinia identified a few as they walked. Scenes from the Holy War, the creation of the Coffin of Eternal Darkness, the forging of the sacred treasures of the 7 deadly sins. It's like walking through a museum of your world's history, Naruto commented, examining a particularly detailed mural showing a battle between goddesses and demons. A history that now intersects with yours, Gloxinia reminded him. What happens in the coming days will write new chapters for both our worlds. After what felt like hours, the tunnel began to slope upward. The air grew gradually warmer, and the distant sounds of activity could be heard above them. We're approaching the catacombs beneath Leon's castle, Gloxinia informed them, his voice lowered. From here, we must proceed with greater caution. The upper levels may be patrolled by Azrael's forces. He extinguished the glowing orb, leaving them in darkness for a moment before Elizabeth summoned a gentle silver light to her palm, enough to see by without being immediately noticeable from a distance. The tunnel eventually opened into a larger chamber filled with ancient stone sarcophagi and memorial tablets, the royal crypt of Leon's, final resting place of kings and queens long past. My ancestors, Elizabeth whispered, her expression solemn as she regarded the tombs. And soon, my current vessel if you proceed any further, a new voice echoed through the chamber, feminine, melodic. Yet undercut with something inhuman. From the shadows stepped a figure they recognized immediately, Selena, though changed since their last encounter. Her silver hair now had streaks of unnatural green, and her eyes glowed with the same sickly light. The liquid-like armor she wore seemed to have partly merged with her flesh, creating a disturbing hybrid of woman and material. Well, she said, her head tilting at an uncomfortable angle as she studied them. The infiltration team, right on schedule. My master predicted you would choose this route while you're IENDS create their little diversion at the western gate. It's a trap, Naruto realized, golden energy already beginning to swirl around his hands. They knew we were coming. Of course we knew, Selena laughed. The sound echoing unnaturally. My master sees across worlds, across time itself. Did you really think your childish plan would surprise us? If you knew we were coming, Elizabeth replied calmly. Her own silver light gathering around her. Why meet us with only yourself? Where are your reinforcements? Something like uncertainty flickered across Selena's transformed features. Nay, no assistance to deal with the likes of you. My master has granted me power beyond anything you can imagine. Has he? Gloxinia asked, his ancient eyes studying her critically. Or has he merely hollowed you out to make room for more of himself? You're changing, Selena, not evolving, being consumed. Lies. She hissed, though her voice wavered. I am being perfected, not consumed. My humanity was a limitation I gladly discarded. Your humanity was what made you valuable, Elizabeth said gently. Without it, you're just another vessel to be used and discarded, like Varrock before you. Enough talk, Selena snarled. Raising her staff, the crystal atop it pulsed with corrupt energy. My master wants the goddess vessel alive. The rest of you are expendable. She slammed the staff into the stone floor, and cracks of green light spread outward like veins of poison. From these cracks emerged formless shapes that gradually solidified into humanoid figures, not living knights but constructs of the same liquid-like material that composed Selena's armor. Manifestations of my master's will, she explained with twisted pride. Not quite alive, but more than mere puppets. They will keep you occupied while I deal with the princess. The constructs surged forward, their movements fluid yet somehow wrong, as if the concepts of joints and muscles were only approximations to them. Naruto moved to intercept them. Golden energy forming barriers and weapons as needed. Get Elizabeth to the upper levels, he called to Gloxinia. Find the king. I'll handle these things and catch up. No, Elizabeth protested. We stay together. That's the plan. Plans change, Naruto replied, deflecting a construct's attack with a golden-wreathed arm. We can't all get bogged down here. Gloxinia hesitated, then nodded. He's right. Our primary objective is your father. These constructs are meant to delay us, not defeat us. Go, Naruto insisted, creating several golden clones to engage the advancing enemies. I'll be right behind you. With visible reluctance, Elizabeth allowed Gloxinia to guide her toward a narrow staircase at the far end of the crypt. Selena moved to intercept them, but Naruto was faster, appearing between them in a flash of golden light. Your fight is with me, he told her, golden energy swirling around him like a protective cloak. Selena's lips curved in a mockery of a smile. So be it, anomaly. Let's see how your foreign power holds against my master's blessing. She attacked with frightening speed, her staff leaving trails of corrosive energy as it sliced through the air. Naruto dodged and parried, using his golden barriers to deflect the worst of her strikes. Each time her staff connected with his energy, there was a hissing sound, like acid on metal, but unlike Elizabeth's goddess power. His transformed chakra held against the corruption. Interesting, Selena observed, circling him warily. Your power resists my negation effect. Not completely, but significantly. What are you, really? Just a ninja who's really tired of people trying to end the world, Naruto replied, gathering energy for a counterattack. We have those where I come from too. He formed a golden Rasengan in his palm, the spiraling sphere larger and more stable than his previous attempts. When he launched himself forward, Selena met his charge with her staff raised defensively. The two powers collided in a spectacular display of conflicting energies, gold versus sickly green, creation versus corruption. The resulting explosion threw them both backward, Naruto crashing into a stone sarcophagus while Selena slammed into the far wall. The constructs paused in their advance, as if momentarily confused by the disruption to their creator's focus. Naruto regained his feet quickly, assessing the situation. Most of the constructs still stood, though several had been destroyed in the blast. Selena was slower to rise, her armor cracked in places to reveal not flesh but a strange crystalline substance beneath. You see it now, don't you? Naruto called to her. What your master is doing to you. You're becoming a crystal, just like the one on your staff. A focus for his power, not a partner. Shut up, she snarled, though doubt clouded her glowing eyes. You know nothing of my arrangement with Lord Azrael. I know enough, Naruto replied, creating more golden clones to engage the remaining constructs. I've seen people like you before, so desperate for power they'll sacrifice anything, even themselves. It never ends well. Selena's face contorted with rage. You dare lecture me, you, a stranger to this world, an aberration that should never have crossed the veil. She raised her staff high, green energy gathering around it in a maelstrom of corrupt power. Let me show you the true extent of what my master has granted me. The crystal atop her staff shattered, releasing a torrent of energy that engulfed her completely. When it dissipated, she stood transformed. Her human appearance almost entirely gone, replaced by a crystalline entity that only vaguely retained feminine features. Her voice, when she spoke, echoed as if multiple voices were speaking in imperfect unison. Behold the next stage of evolution, the entity that had been Selena proclaimed. Neither human nor celestial, but something new, a bridge between worlds. She's lost herself completely, Kurama observed grimly. Whatever Azrael promised her, this wasn't it. No, Naruto agreed silently. She's just another victim, in the end. The transformed Selena attacked with renewed vigor, her crystalline limbs extending and reshaping at will to strike from multiple angles simultaneously. Naruto found himself hard-pressed to defend, his golden barriers cracking under the assault of upped energy that now flowed continuously from her form. We need something stronger than basic barriers, he realized. One of the sealing patterns Gloxinia taught us. As he dodged another attack, Naruto mentally reviewed the complex designs he and Elizabeth had practiced. One in particular seemed appropriate, the pattern of purification, designed to cleanse corruption without destroying the underlying structure. Creating space with a burst of golden energy that temporarily drove back both Selena and her constructs, Naruto began forming the pattern in the air before him. Golden light traced intricate symbols that interlocked and overlapped, each representing a different aspect of the purification process. "What are you doing?" Selena demanded, hesitating at the sight of the unfamiliar magic. "That's not goddess power." "No," Naruto agreed, continuing to build the pattern. "It's something older, something that remembers when our worlds were one." The completed pattern hung between them, a mandala of golden light spinning slowly on its axis. Naruto poured more of his chakra into it, causing the symbols to brighten and expand. "Pattern of purification," he intoned, remembering Bloxinia's instructions. "Separate light from darkness, truth from deception, essence from corruption." The pattern shot forward, expanding as it moved to envelop Selena's crystalline form. Where it touched her, the corrupt green energy hissed and steamed, being drawn out of her transformed body like poison from a wound. "No," she screamed, her voice shifting between human and otherworldly. "He promised me power, immortality, godhood." "He lied," Naruto replied simply, maintaining the pattern despite the strain it placed on his reserves. "That's what beings like Azrael do. They lie." The purification continued, green energy bleeding away from Selena's form to be neutralized by the golden pattern. Gradually, glimpses of human flesh became visible beneath the crystal, areas where her original body was reasserting itself as the corruption receded. "Stop," she gasped, her voice more human now, filled with pain and confusion. "Please, it hurts." Naruto hesitated, his natural compassion warring with the necessity of completing the purification. In that moment of uncertainty, a surge of power erupted from deep within Selena, not the sickly green of Azrael's corruption, but something darker, more primal. "Fool," she hissed, her voice once again layered with otherworldly tones. "Did you think my master would leave his vessel unprotected against such basic magic?" The pattern of purification, shattered as a wave of pure darkness exploded outward from Selena's core. Naruto was thrown backward, crashing through several stone sarcophagi before coming to rest against the far wall, his golden aura flickering weakly around him. "That wasn't her power," Kurama warned. "That was Azrael himself, acting through her." "I know," Naruto grimaced, pushing himself up despite the pain lancing through his body. "We need something stronger than purification." Selena, or what remained of her, stalked toward him, her form a horrific hybrid of woman, crystal, and something else entirely. Tendrils of darkness writhed around her like living shadows, reaching toward him with malevolent purpose. "My master grows impatient," she said, her voice now so distorted it barely sounded human at all. "The diversion has served its purpose. Your friends are already overwhelmed at the western gate. Soon, the castle will be fully under our control, and the final phase can begin." "What final phase?" Naruto demanded, playing for time as he gathered what remained of his strength. A twisted smile spread across her crystalline features. "The convergence, of course. Even now, the king's power is being harnessed to locate and activate every node in Britannia's magical network. When they all align, when the sacred sites pulse in perfect harmony, the veil between worlds will thin enough for my master to reach through completely. And destroy both worlds in the process," Naruto concluded grimly. "Not destruction," she corrected. "Transformation. Those worthy will ascend to become like my master, beings of pure power, unconstrained by flesh or dimension. The rest," she shrugged, the motion unnaturally fluid. "The rest will serve as fuel for the new order." "Not going to happen," Naruto declared, golden energy surging around him with renewed determination. "Your master made one big mistake in his calculations." "Oh," Selena tilted her head at that impossible angle again. "And what might that be?" "He UGHT me to a world with people worth protecting," Naruto replied, his eyes shifting to resemble Kurama's, slitted pupils ringed with gold. "And I never give up on those I care about." With a roar that was half his own, half Kurama's, Naruto unleashed his full power. Golden light erupted around him, forming the fox-like cloak he had manifested during their first battle with Golgius, but more stable now, more integrated with his being. 9 tails of golden energy swayed behind him, and fox-like ears formed above his head. "Impressive light show," Selena commented, though uncertainty flickered in her inhuman eyes. "But it changes nothing." "We'll see about that," Naruto replied, his voice deepened by the power flowing through him. He moved with blinding speed, appearing behind her before she could react. One golden tail lashed out, wrapping around her arm and sizzling where it touched the crystalline surface. She screamed, a sound of genuine pain and surprise, and tried to pull free, but Naruto held firm. "You're not fully corrupted yet," he told her, his enhanced senses detecting the flickers of humanity still trapped within the crystal. "There's still a person in there somewhere. That person is gone," she snarled, darkness gathering around her free hand to form a blade of pure shadow. Surrendered willingly for power, she slashed at him with the shadow blade, but another of his golden tails intercepted it. The two energies canceling each other out in a shower of sparks. "No one surrenders themselves completely," Naruto countered, wrapping additional tails around her struggling form. "Not willingly, not if they understand the true cost." With each point of contact between his golden energy and her corrupted form, purification occurred, slower than with the formal pattern, but steady and inexorable. The crystal began to crack, revealing glimpses of the woman beneath. "Stop," she screamed, her voice shifting between human and otherworldly. "He'll abandon me if I fail him. I'll be nothing again." "You were never nothing," Naruto said firmly, continuing the purification despite her struggles. "Azrael saw value in you, enough to choose you as his vessel. That value didn't come from him, it was already there." For a moment, something human flickered in her eyes, fear, confusion, perhaps even a spark of hope. Then darkness surged from within her once more, obliterating that brief glimpse of humanity. "Enough." The voice that emerged was no longer Selena's at all, but something ancient and terrible. "This vessel has served its purpose. I have no further use for it." The crystal comprising Selena's body began to fragment, pieces falling away to reveal not human flesh but empty darkness beneath. Her face contorted in a silent scream as she literally hollowed out from within. Azrael's presence withdrawing from her and taking most of her substance with it. "No." Naruto tightened his golden tails around her disintegrating form, trying desperately to halt the process. "Fight it, Selena, hold on to yourself." But it was too late. With a sound like shattering glass, Selena's form collapsed entirely, leaving nothing but a pile of crystal shards and a lingering echo of her final, human scream. The constructs she had created similarly dissolved, returning to the corrupt energy from which they had been formed. Naruto knelt beside the remains, his golden cloak fading. Inga's exhaustion and sorrow overtook him. He had failed to save her, had perhaps even hastened her end by forcing Azrael to abandon a vessel that was becoming a liability. "You showed her compassion at the end," Kurama said quietly. "That's more than most would have done." "It wasn't enough," Naruto replied bitterly. "I should have realized sooner what was happening to her." "There was nothing you could have done," the fox insisted. "She made her choice when she accepted Azrael's power. All choices have consequences." Naruto gathered himself, knowing he couldn't afford to dwell on this failure. Elizabeth and Gloxinia had gone ahead to find the king, and if Selena's claims about the Western Gate were true, Meliodas and the others might be in serious trouble. He activated the communication crystal Gloxinia had given him. "Elizabeth. Gloxinia, can you hear me?" The crystal pulsed with light, and Elizabeth's voice emerged, tense but clear. "Naruto, are you all right? We felt the magical disturbance from here." "I'm fine," he assured her, though, fine, was a stretch given his physical and emotional state. "Selena is gone. Azrael abandoned her when she started to lose." "Where are you?" "The throne room," Elizabeth replied, her voice dropping to a whisper. "We found my father, but Naruto, something's wrong with him. His eyes are glowing with that same green light, and he's surrounded by some kind of magical circle. Selena said they're using him to activate the magical network across Britannia," Naruto explained, already moving toward the staircase Elizabeth and Gloxinia had taken earlier. "His prophetic abilities must make him sensitive to the ley lines. We need to free him quickly." Gloxinia's voice joined the conversation. "The alignment is already beginning. I can feel the sacred sites awakening across the land. I'm on my way," Naruto promised. "Hold on." He raced up the narrow staircase, following the residual trace of Elizabeth's silver energy that lingered in the air. The castle above was surprisingly empty. No guards, no servants, no signs of the normal activity one would expect in a royal residence. The silence was eerie, making his footsteps sound unnatурally loud as he ran through deserted corridors. It's a trap, Kurama warned unnecessarily. This is too easy. I know, Naruto agreed. But we don't have a choice. We need to stop whatever ritual they're performing with the king. He reached a massive set of double doors that could only lead to the throne room. Elizabeth's energy signature was strongest here, along with another power, ancient and complex, that must be Gloxinia. Taking a deep breath to center himself, Naruto pushed the doors open and entered. The throne room of Leones was a vast chamber with soaring ceilings supported by marble columns. Stained glass windows depicted scenes from the kingdom's history, casting colorful patterns across the polished floor. At the far end, on a raised dais, stood the throne itself, currently occupied by a regal man with silver-streaked hair and a beard. King Bartra Leones sat unnaturally still, his eyes open but glowing with the now familiar green light of Israel's corruption. Around him, a complex magical circle had been inscribed on the floor, pulsing with the same sickly energy. Elizabeth and Gloxinia stood at the edge of this circle, apparently unable to penetrate it despite their combined efforts. Naruto, Elizabeth called when she saw him, relief evident in her voice. We can't reach him. The barrier repels both goddess power and fairy magic. It's attuned specifically to this world's energies. Gloxinia explained grimly, which might be why your power could affect Selena when Elizabeth's could not. You're still partially outside this reality's magical framework. Naruto approached the circle cautiously, studying its design. Unlike the harmonious patterns Gloxinia had taught them, this was jagged and discordant, designed to channel power forcibly rather than work with natural flows. Stand back, he advised, golden energy gathering around his hands once more. Let me try something. Drawing on what he had learned about ceiling patterns, Naruto began tracing chair symbols in the air, designed specifically meant to disrupt and neutralize the circle's function. His golden energy flowed into these symbols, charging them with intent and purpose. Pattern of dissolution, he murmured, remembering one of the more complex designs Gloxinia had shown them. Unbind what was bound, release what was chained, restore what was corrupted. The golden symbols launched forward, attaching themselves to key points around the circle's perimeter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like cracking ice, fissures appeared in the green energy barrier, spreading outward from each point of contact with Naruto's countering symbols. It's working, Elizabeth exclaimed. The barrier is weakening. But before the dissolution could complete, King Bartra suddenly spoke. His voice layered with the same otherworldly harmonics they had heard from Selena. Too late, he intoned, his glowing eyes fixed on some point beyond the physical world. The alignment is achieved. The nodes are awakened. The convergence begins. The magical circle around him flared with blinding intensity, the green light shooting upward in a column that pierced the ceiling of the throne room. Similar columns of light could be seen through the windows, rising from various points throughout the kingdom and beyond, sacred sites across Britannia responding to the king's call. No, Gloxinia cried, genuine fear in the ancient fairy's voice. He's connecting all the ley lines at once. The magical feedback will tear reality apart. The entire castle began to tremble, stones cracking as the overwhelming energy surged through structures never designed to channel such power. Outside, the sky darkened unnaturally, clouds swirling in patterns that defied natural weather systems. We need to break the circle completely. Naruto shouted over the growing cacophony. Elizabeth, your goddess powers, can you purify your father directly if I get you through the barrier? She nodded grimly. I think so, yes. But how will you? Like this, Naruto replied, golden energy erupting around him once more to form the fox cloak. With a roar of effort, he thrust both hands into the weakened barrier, forcing it open like a physical curtain. Now, quickly, Elizabeth darted forward through the opening he created, silver light already gathering around her hands as she reached her father. She placed her palms on either side of his face, her right eye blazing with orange light. Arc, she commanded. Purification. Silver-white light engulfed the king's form, battling against the corrupt green energy that had taken hold of him. For several agonizing seconds, the two powers seemed evenly matched, neither gaining advantage. Then, with a whispered word that sounded suspiciously like, Elizabeth, K. King Bartra's own will join the struggle. His eyes cleared momentarily, the natural blue showing through the unnatural green. Pattern of severance, Gloxinia called, adding his own power to the effort. Ancient fairy magic, gold green and vastly different from Azrael's corruption, flowed from his staff to encircle the king, reinforcing Elizabeth's purification. With a final surge of combined will, the three of them broke Azrael's hold on King Bartra. The green light fled from his eyes, and the magical circle beneath the throne sputtered and died. The king slumped forward, caught by Elizabeth before he could fall completely. "Father," she cried, cradling him gently. "Can you hear me?" Slowly, the king's eyes opened, natural blue once more, though clouded with exhaustion and confusion. "Elizabeth, what has happened? I was dreaming of stars falling from the sky, of worlds colliding." "Not dreams," Gloxinia said gravely. "Visions of what Azrael intends. Your Majesty, your prophetic abilities made you the perfect conduit for his power. He used you to activate the sacred sites across Britannia. And though we've freed you," Naruto added, joining them at the throne, "the process has already begun. Look." He gestured toward the windows, where the columns of light continued to rise into the darkening sky. "The alignment," King Bartra murmured, his royal bearing reasserting itself despite his weakened state. "I saw it in my visions. The moment when our world and another would touch across the void." "My world," Naruto confirmed. "He's creating a bridge between them." "For what purpose?" the king asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. "To harvest both," Gloxinia replied simply. "To consume the combined power of two realities that were once one." Before they could discuss this further, the communication crystal at Naruto's belt pulsed urgently. He activated it to find Meliodas' voice emerging, breathless and strained over sounds of battle. "We're being overrun at the western gate," the Sin captain reported. "These aren't ordinary knights. They're like Selena, partially crystallized and immune to most of our attacks. Even Escanor is having trouble with their numbers." "We've freed the king," Naruto informed him. "But the alignment has already begun. Sacred sites across Britannia are activating." "I can see that," Meliodas replied grimly. "The question is, how do we stop it now that it's started?" All eyes turned to Gloxinia, whose ancient knowledge represented their best hope for answers. The fairy king's expression was solemn as he considered the question. "The alignment itself cannot be stopped now that it's in motion," he finally said. "But its purpose can be changed. The energy being gathered need not serve Azrael's ends." "How?" Elizabeth asked, still supporting her father, who listened with intense focus despite his exhaustion. "The sacred pattern of redirection," Gloxinia explained. "The most complex of the sealing arts. Designed to capture and redirect energy flows of cosmic magnitude. It would require tremendous power to execute, more than any one of us possesses individually. But together," Naruto suggested, already guessing where this was leading. Gloxinia nodded. "You and Elizabeth, combining your powers as you did against Varric, but with greater control, greater purpose. The pattern would allow you to redirect the alignment's energy back into stabilizing the barriers between worlds rather than weakening them. You've been teaching us toward this all along," Elizabeth realized. "All those patterns, all that training, it was preparation for this moment. I hoped it would not be necessary," the ancient fairy admitted. "But I feared it might be. The signs have been clear for those with eyes to see them." "Then let's do it," Naruto said decisively. "Tell us what we need to do." Gloxinia gestured, and a complex pattern appeared in the air before them, far more intricate than any they had practiced. With layer upon layer of interconnected symbols forming a three-dimensional mandala of extraordinary beauty and complexity. "This is the sacred pattern of redirection," he explained. "It must be formed at the central node of the alignment, the place where the energies converge most strongly." "And where is that?" King Bartra asked, his voice stronger now as he drew on reserves of royal dignity. Gloxinia's expression grew troubled. "Based on the pattern of light columns, the convergence point appears to be directly above the castle. At the highest tower, the observatory tower," Elizabeth said immediately. "Father's personal sanctuary, where he receives his prophetic visions." "Of course," the king murmured. "It was built on the exact center of the kingdom's oldest ley line junction." "I should have realized. Can you walk, Your Majesty?" Gloxinia asked practically. We must reach the observatory quickly if this is to work. The king nodded, standing with Elizabeth's support. Lead the way. This is my kingdom, and I will not see it consumed by this celestial parasite. As they hurried from the throne room, Naruto updated Meliodas through the communication crystal. We're heading to the observatory tower. Gloxinia thinks we can redirect the alignment energy to strengthen the barriers between worlds instead of weakening them. Good plan, Meliodas replied, the sounds of battle still raging in the background. We'll hold the line here as long as we can. But hurry, something's happening in the sky above the castle. It looks like a tear, similar to what we saw in the Fairy King's forest, but much larger. Azrael, Naruto guessed grimly. He's trying to force his way through while the veil is thin. Then you'd better stop him, Meliodas said simply. Good luck. They navigated the empty castle swiftly, climbing staircase after staircase toward the highest point. As they ascended, the trembling of the structure intensified, and the quality of light changed, tearing through windows in unnatural colors that hurt the eyes if viewed directly. Reality itself is becoming unstable, Gloxinia explained as they climbed. The barriers between worlds were never meant to be thinned this rapidly. The fabric of existence is straining under the pressure. Finally, they reached the top of the observatory tower, a circular chamber with a domed ceiling made entirely of glass, providing a perfect view of the sky above. What they saw there made them all pause in momentary shock. The heavens had split open, revealing a swirling vortex of darkness shot through with Florida. She's of both familiar worlds, glimpses of Konoha's Hokage monument alongside images of Britannia's landscapes. At the center of this maelstrom, a figure was taking shape, humanoid but wrong somehow, its proportions shifting and changing as it struggled to manifest fully. Azrael, Gloxinia confirmed their suspicions. He's using the alignment to force his way through the seal that has contained him for millennia. Then we need to act now, Naruto said, turning to Elizabeth. Are you ready for this? It's going to take everything we have. She met his gaze steadily, determination hardening her delicate features. I'm ready, whatever it takes to save both our worlds. King Bartra watched them with new understanding in his royal eyes. The Whispered One and the Goddess Reborn, he murmured. Just as my vision foretold. When golden light and silver merge, when fox and angel dance as one, the harvester's power shall be undone, or made absolute, Elizabeth finished the prophecy. Let's make sure it's the former, not the latter. They positioned themselves in the center of the observatory, directly beneath the tear in reality. Gloxinia moved to one side with the king, his ancient power forming a protective barrier around them both. Remember everything we practiced, the Fairy King advised. The pattern must be perfect, your intentions aligned, your wills unified. Any discord between you will cause the pattern to fail. Naruto and Elizabeth faced each other, close enough to feel the warmth of each other's breath. Gold and silver light already began to dance around them, NDING to their heightened emotions and the danger of the moment. Whatever happens, Naruto said softly, for her ears alone, I'm glad I found my way to your world, Elizabeth. So am I, she replied, her mismatched eyes shining with emotions too complex to name. Now let's save it together. They raised their hands in perfect synchronization, not touching but mirroring each other's movements exactly as they began to form the sacred pattern of redirection between them. Layer by layer, symbol by symbol, the complex mandala took shape, golden light from Naruto's palms meeting silver from Elizabeth's. The energies intertwining without merging completely. Above them, the tear in reality widened further, and Azrael's partially formed figure reached toward them with elongated limbs that seemed to bend in impossible ways. His face, if the shifting collection of features could be called a face, displayed both rage and hunger as he sensed what they were attempting. You cannot stop the convergence, his voice boomed, somehow bypassing their ears to resonate directly in their minds. It was ordained before your worlds were sundered. The harvest must proceed. You know what I think about people who talk about destiny. Naruto called back, never pausing in his construction of the pattern. They usually use it as an excuse to hurt others. Well, I make my own destiny. The pattern grew more complex, expanding outward to fill the space between them and above them, forming a three-dimensional structure of interlocking symbols and flowing lines. As it neared completion, it began to pulse with The same pearlescent light they had created when fighting Varric, neither gold nor silver but a perfect synthesis of both. Now, Gloxinia called as the final symbols locked into place. Direct it upward, into the heart of the tier. Together, Naruto and Elizabeth thrust their hands toward the ceiling, sending the completed pattern shooting upward like an arrow of light. It struck the center of the dimensional tear, expanding rapidly upon impact to encompass the entire rift. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a sound like a massive bell being struck, the pattern began to draw. In the energy being channeled through the alignment, columns of light from across Britannia bent toward the observatory, feeding into the pattern rather than into the tear as Azrael had intended. No, the entity howled, his partially formed body beginning to fragment as the energy he had been siphoning was redirected. This power is mine to harvest. Mine by right of ancients. This power belongs to neither world, Elizabeth replied, her voice amplified by the pattern itself. It is the force of life, of creation, not meant for consumption but for continuance. The pattern continued to absorb energy, glowing brighter with each passing second. Naruto and Elizabeth maintained their focus, their wills aligned in perfect harmony as they directed the flow. Under their guidance, the pattern began to emit pulses of pearlescent light that spread outward along the edges of the tear, mending reality where it had been rent. As Ryle's form became increasingly unstable, portions of his body dissipating like smoke in a strong wind. His rage was palpable, a psychic pressure that threatened to crush their minds with its intensity. You cannot banish me forever, he snarled, even as more of his manifestation faded. I am eternal. I am inevitable. When worlds end and new ones begin, I will be there to harvest their essence. Maybe, Naruto acknowledged, strain evident in his voice as he maintained the pattern. But not today, and not these worlds. With a final surge of combined will, they poured everything they had into the pattern. The pearlescent light flared with blinding intensity, NDING to fill the entire observatory and beyond. When their vision cleared, the tear in reality was gone, the sky above normal once more, stars beginning to appear as twilight descended over Lyons. Columns of light across Britannia had vanished as well, the sacred sites returning to their dormant state. The castle had stopped trembling, the unnatural energies that had threatened to tear it apart now dispersed harmlessly. Exhausted beyond measure, Naruto and Elizabeth lowered their arms, the pattern between them dissolving into motes of golden and silver light that drifted away like dust in a gentle breeze. They swayed on their feet, drained by the immense effort of the redirection. You did it, King Bartra said, awe evident in his royal voice. You've saved us all. Both worlds, Gloxinia confirmed, his ancient eyes reflecting satisfaction and relief. The barriers between realities have been restored, strengthened, even. Azrael has been cast back into the void between dimensions, his connection to our world severed. Is he gone for good? Elizabeth asked, her voice weak with fatigue. The Fairy King shook his head regretfully. Beings such as he are not so easily destroyed. He is contained once more, as he was after the original sundering of worlds. But containment is not elimination. Which means he could return someday, Naruto concluded grimly. Perhaps, Gloxinia acknowledged, but not in your lifetimes. Nor in many generations to come. The barriers you have restored are stronger than they were before, reinforced by the very energy Azrael sought to use against them. Before they could discuss this further, the door to the observatory burst open. Meliodas rushed in, his clothing torn and bloodied but his green eyes alert and searching. Behind him came Ban, King, Diane in a reduced human size to fit in the tower, and Escanor, all showing signs of hard fighting but very much alive. Elizabeth, Meliodas called, relief evident in his voice. You're all right. We're fine, she assured him, smiling despite her exhaustion. And we've won. Azrael has been banished back to the void. We saw the light show from the western gate, Ban commented, his usual lazy grin returning despite a nasty gash across his cheek. Very impressive. Almost as impressive as us fighting off an entire army of crystal zombies. The knights who were corrupted, King explained more precisely. They collapsed when the tear closed, returned to normal, though unconscious. It seems Azrael's influence has been purged from them. The kingdom is secure once more, King Bartra declared, drawing himself up with royal dignity despite his ordeal. Thanks to all of you, and especially. His gaze settled on Naruto with new appreciation. The whispered one from beyond the veil. Naruto shrugged, uncomfortable with the formal acknowledgement. I just did what needed doing. Anyone would have. No, Elizabeth said softly, her eyes meeting his. Not anyone could have done what you did. What we did together. There was something in her gaze, something warm and deep and personal, that made his heart skip despite his exhaustion. Whatever had been growing between them through their shared ordeals, it had only strengthened in this final trial. As the group made their way down from the observatory, discussing the aftermath and how to restore order to the kingdom, Naruto found himself walking beside Elizabeth. Their hands brushed occasionally, neither quite daring to take the other's openly, but each contact sending that same gentle warmth through them both. So what happens now? He asked quietly, the question encompassing far more than just the immediate future of Britannia. Elizabeth considered this, her silver hair catching the last rays of sunset through the castle windows. Now we rebuild, heal the damage Azrael and his puppets caused, restore the kingdom to what it should be. And after that, Naruto pressed gently. She looked at him then, something vulnerable and hopeful in her gaze. After that, I don't know exactly. For the first time in 3,000 years, my future isn't predetermined by a curse or a prophecy. It's open. That sounds nice, Naruto said with a smile. An open future. Yes, she agreed, her fingers finally, deliberately, intertwining with his. It does, doesn't it? Behind them, Meliodas watched their clasped hands with an express. Scion too complex to read, something between resignation, understanding, and perhaps a touch of melancholy. Ban clapped him on the shoulder sympathetically. 3,000 years is a long time, Captain, the immortal said quietly. Maybe it's time for new beginnings all around. Meliodas nodded slowly, a small, genuine smile gradually replacing his momentary sadness. You might be right, Ban. You just might be right. As night fell over Leones, stars appeared in a sky unmarred by dimensional tears or ominous clouds. Two worlds continued their separate existences, the barriers between them restored and strengthened. And in a castle being slowly returned to life and order, a princess from one world and a ninja from another walked hand in hand toward a future neither had imagined possible just days before. Not a bad outcome for an accidental dimensional traveler, Kurama commented wryly within Naruto's mind. No, Naruto agreed, glancing at Elizabeth's profile in the torchlight. Not bad at all. Chapter 2 end.